course, the number pi is part of it all. 3.1. It never ends.
Wait on one person, then we'll start. All right. Okay, I think we're ready to go. So I'm going to call the regular city council meeting of the city of Colleyville to order for May the 7th, 2019 at 7:31 p.m. Now, let me first call the roll. Councilmember Nakamura.
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Lindemoot.
Here.
Councilmember Wheat.
Here.
The mayor is here. Councilmember Dodson.
Here.
Councilmember Kelly is out of town, so he will not be with us tonight. He's watching, so hi, Jack. Councilmember Rigney.
Here.
Okay, so we always start with an invocation and then the Pledge of Allegiance. Pastor Dave Young of Crown of Life is going to give our invocation this evening. Would you all please stand?
Would you pray with me? Heavenly Father, we thank you for the many blessings you have bestowed upon us. And we come tonight with mixed feelings. Our hearts are heavy when we hear the news of another school shooting in Colorado and one so close to Columbine. And so we lift up to you all those people that have been affected and will be affected by this. We pray for healing for those victims that have sustained injuries. And we pray for emotional healing for all the students. We thank you, Lord, for all first responders, for we know that every day they put their lives on the line for us. We thank you for this wonderful city that we are blessed to live in, for the great schools that our children get to attend, for the wonderful parks that surround us, for the dedicated city staff that works hard to meet the needs of all of our citizens, and for our elected officials, for we know, Lord, that they serve willingly. And so we pray for your wisdom and discernment for them as they make decisions that affect all the citizens. And we pray this all in the name of our Savior, Jesus. Amen.
Amen. Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I want to welcome all of you here. Thank you for coming. We really like it when people are here and people are watching. I'm always surprised at how many people watch. I'm glad they do. But we do have several items on the agenda, as we always do, that we'll have public hearings. You may speak at any of those. There are cards in the back that's convenient for us if you fill them out and put your name, address, and what item you want to speak on. But once I open the public hearing, I will not stop the public hearing until everyone has spoken on that public hearing, whether you fill a card out or not. So you can just raise your hand and we'll get you up here, because we really do like the participation. We always are in executive session immediately before this meeting starts, and so we just came out of executive session. And agenda item 2, which we'll go to now, is the item that allows us to take action that we may need to take based on discussions in the executive session. Tonight, we do not need it. There is no action that we need to take as a result of those discussions. So we'll immediately go then to agenda item 3, which is announcements, presentations, and proclamations. So we'll go there, and we always start with announcements, and we always have them, as you probably noticed. So I'll start off. I have a couple of short ones. I typically like to keep everyone updated on how the city is doing from a financial and sales tax perspective. It's not the month for the sales tax update, the meeting. So I do have some data on permit data. So with a half of the fiscal year complete, we've issued 73 new home permits and 45 commercial occupancy permits. Of that includes 4 new commercial buildings. And so our community development staff has worked very hard on this with the permit processing process, and we've been trying to speed up that process, and they're currently at like 7 to 10 days, so they're doing a superb job, and I know they're working very hard. So we're doing well with growth in the city from that point of view. And kind of associated with that, I wanted to comment on May the 6th through the 11th is Small Business Week and National Economic Week and Small Business Week. And so that effort, I wanted to comment on that because that recognizes the contributions of America's entrepreneur and small business owners and how it contributes to our entire economy. More than half of Americans own their own business or work for small businesses, and small businesses create 2 out of 3 new jobs in the U.S. So that's actually pretty phenomenal, I think. And of course, in our city, we have a lot of citizens that do that, either have their own business or work in small business or start small businesses. And we've been talking about actually creating an entrepreneur center. We're still working on that in conjunction with the Chamber of Commerce. So that will be forthcoming pretty shortly. So that's all I wanted to say right now. Anybody else?
Sure, I have one. We have a grant-funded landscaping coming to the Southern Gateway. Our very own Mark Wood, right over here to my right. And he has been pushing really hard on TxDOT, and they gave him the green, the green ribbon funding from Brown Trail to Cheeksbarger, and they'll be writing us a $172,000 check for that. Because of your efforts, we appreciate that, and really all the staff. And not only that, didn't y'all also get something just recently for Glade Road at Bluebonnet as well? How much was that one?
$1.2 million.
$1.2 million. What an awesome staff we have. So thank you, Mark Wood, for pressing hard and looking for those grants that we can find. And you're doing a great job, the whole staff is. Thank you.
And I've got something to say on our wonderful events committee that is working very, very hard. We are bringing a car show to Colleyville. So all of those who like cars, we will have it on June 1st from 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. It's going to be in our south parking lot. And it's a free event run by the city. So if anybody has any questions, Erin Spicer's right back there. Erin, wave to everybody. Just give her a call. She does a great job, and she will give you any information that you need.
I want to comment on the crosswalk improvements discussion. At a recent Traffic Advisory Committee meeting, staff discussed upgrading our crossings to include illuminated pedestrian crossing signs with an activation button for those using the crossings. An inventory of all crossings will be reviewed at a future TAC meeting with a recommendation to budget for such improvements in the upcoming fiscal year.
And I wanted to report that the city staff have developed a drainage committee to focus on a number of drainage issues around the city. And this morning they reviewed in their first meeting 24 separate drainage situations. They also looked at engineering reviews and active projects. The committee will meet and continue to provide updated status reports on all outstanding issues, and members of the committee, including staff from City Manager's Office, Public Works, Engineering, and Construction Management, are the members of the Drainage Committee. Residents with drainage concerns should be presented to the Drainage Committee, residents with drainage concerns that wish to get them in front of the Drainage Committee should contact the city manager's office, and their phone number is 817-503-1111. And I wish to report that one of the issues that I had reported to the city manager's office was one of those that was dealt with today, and I got back to the individual that reported it, and they gave me an update. So those things really work, and if you do have drainage issues, and we know that they exist throughout the city, and you will see us paying a lot of attention to drainage as we look at new projects or modifications to existing projects to make sure that we don't create more drainage issues. It's very critical to our city.
Thank you, George.
Just a comment on that. In dealing with these various concerns, we have some that are easier to solve than others, and some that are longer-term, big picture type concerns. And in our conversation at the Drainage Committee today, it was very obviously stated, but it was important to point out that solving a drainage problem in one area must be carefully considered so as not to create a drainage problem somewhere else.
Yep.
And so we're working in these projects. Every 2 weeks we'll meet until we get done with this list, and then we're going to meet once a month. And so an item stays on that agenda until we get it done. When we do something in response, we'll contact the property owner. If it's not done right, we'll put it back on the agenda. But there are going to be occasions where we have to stop at some point, and there's just not much else we can do without either substantial infrastructure improvements, and we'll cost that out, or cooperation from neighbors to provide easements and or additional routing beyond that property.
Great.
And so all of that will be reflected in the minutes and be documented for public viewing.
Super.
So a key point of that is everything that comes in as a request is documented, goes through the process, so we know at any time what the status is, and the citizens that requested did too. That's real important.
Yes.
Okay, very good. Thank you. Is that all, Kathy?
I've got one update. Many of you who live near John McCain are already aware that at 5 o'clock tonight it closed down. TexRail is doing some repairs on the railroad tracks. So it's estimated to open tomorrow night at 5 p.m., but they're hoping tomorrow morning. It'll probably affect us all for school drop-off, though. So just a heads up, you might need to leave a little early tomorrow morning. And if you're a Facebook user, be sure you follow the City of Colleyville Facebook page. That's where that update is. It's also on a text message, so you can find that on our website. If you're not a Facebook user like me, you still get a text message.
Very good.
And I assume it'll be reported as soon as it's open, right?
Yes.
Thank you.
Through the text message.
Via text message, so I get
I did get caught in the traffic this afternoon. I was coming from a funeral from Grapevine. I had to go way around, and there were millions of cars.
My husband texted me some very nice messages.
Okay, so we're still on agenda item 3. There's 3 more things to do. They're fun ones, and there's 2 proclamations. The first one is in recognizing the National Garden Week, and so Colleyville Garden Club, Deanne Rhodes and her people, if you'll join me in the front, we'll do that. And following that, we'll have a proclamation in recognition of Public Works Week, and Public Works Director Ray Silva Reyes and his guys will come down for that. And then we're going to have a presentation to our PTAs as a result of the receipt race. So ladies, thank you for coming and being up here. And there's all ladies, there's no men. Why is there men in the garden club? I just wanted that reaction. So Deanne, you want to introduce everybody?
Yes, I'm going to do that. See if I'm going to speak into the mic. Okay, we have Vicki George, who is in charge. I'm Julie George. I get up here and
That's exactly why I didn't do that.
Okay. I'll see if I can do better. Okay. Julie George, and she's actually in charge of National Garden Club Week. We have Carol Wolin. We have Pat Jones, Suzanne Hughes, my child, I can remember her name, thank goodness. We have Mary Ann Nicholson, and we have Diane Cotter. I know all these people as well as I do myself.
It's not easy when you're standing up here in front of a lot of people, believe me.
This is the first time I've been up to do this, okay?
We have fun.
Yes, we do have fun, good. That's what I do best, okay? All right.
Did you want to say anything?
Well, I'll just tell you that we're celebrating National Garden Club Week, and the library and the Colleyville Garden Club, the week is June the 2nd through the 8th, and on the 4th, we will be having a program up at the library, and we have a speaker that we've heard before at our Garden Club meeting who's very good. He will be talking to us about the 100 top plants for Texas, and this will begin at 6:30 and last till about 8 o'clock, and we invite all of you to come. You can register online. Have I left anything out? In the Colleyville Garden Club, which was established in 1962, we have 176 members. We have increased by about 40 members this year. Had a good year. We have a good club and we have good meetings. Thank you.
I got to say, so I came to one of the meetings recently, which was a district or a district convention, and so they hosted at the Colleyville Center. Can I tell them what the topic was? This was great. So the speaker, the title of her talk, you will never guess this, was Sex in the Garden. Got kids here. Now, depending on it wasn't what you're thinking. It was about plants and pollination. And I got to tell you, it was delightful. It was entertaining, and I learned a lot. And yes, they lost state all the time.
Oh, Mayor.
So I really did enjoy that. So it's a fun club.
How come everybody's looking
We
down?
thank you for coming to our convention.
And it was great. So I got a proclamation. Let me read the proclamation before I get myself in too much trouble. Whereas gardeners seek to add beauty, splendor, fragrance, and nutrition to our lives through the growing of herbs, vegetables, foliage, and flowers, and whereas gardeners work to preserve our country's traditional spirit of independence and initiative through innovation and hard work, and whereas gardening furnishes a challenging and productive activity for our citizens, for those just learning as well as those having years of experience, and whereas gardening promotes a healthy lifestyle that lasts a lifetime, helps reduce stress from other areas of our life, teaches that rewards can come from diligent efforts, and whereas gardening enables members of garden clubs across the nation and the world to make a world of difference in the communities where they reside and work, and whereas the Colleyville Garden Club promotes interest in all phases of gardening, horticultural education, civic beautification, and conservation of natural resources, and whereas the Colleyville Garden Club aids in the protection and conservation of natural resources, actively promotes and participates in civic beautification, and encourages the improvement of roadsides and parks. Now, therefore, I, Richard Newton, Mayor of the City of Colleyville, Texas, on behalf of the City Council, do hereby recognize and express our appreciation to the Colleyville Garden Club and recognize National Garden Week, June 2nd through the 8th, 2019, and encourage our citizens to recognize the numerous contributions of gardeners and enjoy the many contributions made by the Colleyville Garden Club. In witness whereof, I do hereby set my hand and seal of the City of Colleyville, Texas, affixed this 7th day of May 2019. So let me present you with that. You're welcome.
You doing this for us?
Absolutely. I enjoy it.
10:30.
Want me to say it?
Okay, we're having Garden Club meeting tomorrow at 10:30, and we meet at the Colleyville Center every month. And tomorrow will be our final meeting for this Garden Club year. We meet June 1st through May the 31st. We take off for the summer for those who have children so they can be at home with their children. We invite you to come if you'd like to. Thank you.
Thank you so much for coming up. We've got to get a picture. Okay, we always got to get pictures. So, slide around a little bit.
Because it's like my face is right here. I go, yes.
You can see you looking down, like trying to get out of the picture. But anybody caused a fuss about that here. It's a public meeting. Give me a break. But
Okay, Public Works Director Ray Silva Reyes. Where are you? Oh, yeah. Where are you? And your guys?
yeah.
Thank you. How you doing? Great. So you want to get your guys up here and introduce them and talk?
I was just wearing my last year's hat the other day, and I was like, when am I getting a new one? Yeah. I love my Colleyville hat.
Thank you.
They do. I'm gonna put mine on right now. I said I was just wearing my last year's one the other day. Now I got a new one.
Boom.
Right? Now we're going. These are a little more low-key than last year's.
You
So
can't
when I
see
need to
it.
be seen, I gotta wear my last year's. Okay.
All right, Mayor,
Right,
thank you
that's
so
right.
much
If I have
for,
my crazy dog, I'm wearing the other one.
Mayor, thank you so much for bringing us up here. And just wanted to introduce to you, to the city of Colleyville, your public works team here, who's available 24/7 here. They're here repairing roads, repairing water lines, wastewater lines that rupture. They're available 24/7. This group works extremely diligently. They're teamwork oriented, and they are responsive to the call for the citizens. I've never been so much prouder to serve with a group of guys. I appreciate all the hard work you guys do. I know council does. And as we always have said in the past, we are blessed to live in the city because of the amazing team that's in the city. Mayor, also, if you remember during the State of the City address, do you remember the saying I said for my department? The spill? It was, we make your roads, keep your roads smooth, keep your water, keep the toilets flushing and your water running. Well, this is the group right here that keeps it doing for all y'all. And they are the ones who should be recommended and acknowledged for everything that goes on in the city as far as public works go. Public Works Week, Awareness Week is coming up. And on May 17th, we have the Public Works Rodeo down in the city of Keller. We will be participating and showing some of our heavy equipment machinery skills from this group right here. And so that is what time in the city of Keller? 8 to 2 at the city of Keller.
Oh, yeah, it was me. I was just.
Y'all need some help.
But anyways, these guys do deserve a round of applause for what they do. So I appreciate it, guys.
They're not bashful. At least one of them's not bashful. Another, I just want to tell you guys publicly, we're really proud of all of you and appreciate you. You're not up here enough, and we don't get to talk about you enough. You're kind of in the background, but you're not forgotten. And they are extremely important to you as citizens in this city because they're always there, even when a lot of times when there's an event, first responders have to go out. Some of these guys have to go with them. And so we appreciate that. You do great work for us, and you do it quick. So we really do appreciate you. So let me read the proclamation. Whereas public work services provided in our community are an integral part of our citizens' everyday lives, and whereas public works employees work side by side with the police and fire as first responders, and whereas the support of an understanding and informed citizenry is vital to the efficient operation of public work systems and programs such as water, wastewater, streets, public buildings, fleet maintenance, and stormwater management. And whereas the quality and effectiveness of these facilities, as well as their planning, design, and construction, are vitally dependent upon the efforts and skill of public works officials, and whereas the work performed by public works employees directly impacts the quality of life for the residents and businesses of Colleyville. And whereas the American Public Works Association annually sponsors National Public Works Week and has chosen the theme, It Starts Here, to promote the 59th Annual National Public Works Week. Now, therefore, I, Richard Newton, Mayor of the City of Colleyville, Texas, do hereby proclaim the week of May 19th through 25, 2019 as National Public Works Week in the City of Colleyville, and call upon all citizens to recognize the contributions of our public works employees make every day to our health, safety, comfort, and quality of life. In witness whereof, I do hereby set my hand and seal of the City of Colleyville, Texas, affixed this 7th day of May 2019. So again, thank you guys. We appreciate it. So you won.
I won it.
You're gonna win this year?
He didn't
I'm
have to run
counting on
against me.
You win, you come back.
CC.
Well, thank you
I
guys
got
for
your
coming
number.
up. And let's get a picture. Can you get us all?
I'll get it. Looks like a BMX rider. Mark does. You should have a Fox jersey on.
Oh, yeah. yours. Okay, one more thing. This one's a really fun one. Adrian Lother, you want to come down here? Oh, there you are. Okay, so while Adrian's coming down. So, whoa. So these are the,
So funny.
getting ready to announce the results of the receipt race that our PTAs have participated in. So I can tell you this year we had 16 schools participate with a total of 55,468 receipts. Is that all of them?
No.
Not, okay.
As many as we could fit without them falling off.
Yeah, there's a lot of them. That's a lot. So they pulled at random some of these receipts and get an average value of the receipt to estimate how much that 55,000 receipts were worth to our businesses, money spent at the businesses. Anybody want to take a guess of how much that was? It's in the millions. 2 million? Another guess? That's not high enough. Huh? 4? That's not high enough. $5.2 million. Woo! That's great. I mean, you guys did a fantastic job. So Adrian's going to announce the winners.
Thank you, Mayor. We're so excited about this contest and really pleased to share with the community the winners. The schools obviously already know since they're here tonight, but we will start with the third place prize. Mayor, if you will grab our big check. Live checks will follow. Tonight are just the big fun checks. But if I can call up for our third place at $2,000 is Heritage Elementary School.
All right.
Well, we're so excited to share it with you, and thank you for participating in the program. Absolutely. Okay, yeah.
We do. We're going to put a barn in our playground, and it's going to be called HES Plays, and we're going to put some new supplies in there for the kids. So that's going to be kickballs and basketballs and volleyballs and hula hoops. So, yeah, we're excited to be able to do that, get the kids outside playing more. So thank you.
All right.
Thank you so much. So Heritage Elementary came in with 9,467 receipts.
Wow.
That's a lot. So we want to take a picture with Heritage Elementary real quick? Congratulations. All right, so in second place with 9,846 receipts is Bransford Elementary.
All right.
Congratulations. Congratulations. Yeah, very, very close there. So y'all pulled it out. Share anything about your plan?
Hi, I'm Kathleen, and we just want to say thank you so much for this partnership, and it's just such a win-win, I feel like, for our city and for our schools, and just honored to be here. And this is going toward new shade for our playgrounds and for our students, and we live in Texas, so we know that's important. So thank you all so much. We are very honored, so thank you.
We really appreciate what you do and the effort you put in to do this. It was a really close, too. Yes. Okay. Good job. Okay.
What?
Thank you. All right, so that leads us to our number one spot with our winner of the receipt race for 2019. So with 19,878 receipts, our first place at $5,000 goes to Heritage Middle School. Congratulations. Congratulations, you guys.
Yeah, they did.
That's a lot of receipts. Yeah. Wonder. Does somebody
Well, last year we won the receipt race, and we were able to take the $5,000 and apply it to purchasing a digital sign for our school. And so this year we've talked about possible landscaping for the sign, and then to help out teachers with classroom and teacher grants.
Nice. Cool. Yeah, pretty big category next year. Heritage. There we go.
Congratulations again. So before we wrap it up, I just want to make a couple more comments. So this year we changed the program parameters a little bit, and for any school that participated in the receipt collecting process, we're offering them a prize for participating at $500 per school. And we think that was really valuable in getting our participation up and more folks shopping in Colleyville. Out of the 17 schools that could have participated, we had 16 of our GCISD schools participate. So I think that's huge. I think that gives our all but one. So I think that gave a little bit of an extra incentive to encourage our Grapevine neighbors to come shop in Colleyville, because there was a little bit of a sweet in the pot for them to participate. But I know our Colleyville businesses sure appreciate that support, and we're glad to support them through this program. And thank you, Kim, for helping coordinate all of this. We really appreciate the partnership with the PTAs, and we just think this has been such a success, and hope you all really are able to put that to good use, and we appreciate you all.
So these are nice display checks, right? But they're really going to get another one that's real. Okay, very good. Just wanted you to know. Thank you, guys. Okay. Those are fun to do. Appreciate their effort. So now we're moving to agenda item number 4. That's our consent, reading and public hearing of resolution R-19-4376, a resolution approving city council action under consent items at the regular city council meeting of May 7, 2019. Whereas city council has taken action on certain items on the agenda under consent items. Now therefore be it resolved by the city council of the city of Colleyville, Texas, section 1, that the agenda decisions approved by city council action under consent items as follows are hereby adopted. A, approval of the minutes of the regular city council meeting of April 16, 2019, and it is so resolved. So this is a pretty simple one. I assume there's no questions by the council. I'm going to open the public hearing. Public hearing is open. I have no cards. Anyone wish to speak on this item? These are just minutes, but you may speak. I see no one so indicating, so I want to close the public hearing. Public hearing is closed. Council, a motion would be in order.
I move the adoption of resolution R-19-4376.
I second.
Okay, Councilmember Dodson moved to approve. Councilmember Nakamura seconded that motion. So we're ready to vote. Would you open the vote, please? May show it when it's ready. So the motion is approved, therefore the resolution is approved. So we'll now move to agenda 5A. This is reading and public hearing of resolution R-19-4377. Denial of Encore Electric Delivery Company LLC's application to amend its distribution cost recovery factor pursuant to 16 Texas Administration Code 25.243 to increase distribution rates within the city of Colleyville. Whereas the city of Colleyville, Texas is an electric utility customer of Encore Electric Delivery Company LLC, called the Encore or Company, and a regulatory authority with an interest in the rates and charges of Encore. And whereas the city is a member of the steering committee of cities served by Encore, a membership of similarly situated cities served by Encore that have joined together to efficiently and cost-effectively review and respond to electric issues affecting rates charged in Encore's service delivery area. And whereas on or about April the 8th, 2019, Encore filed with the city an application for approval to amend its distribution cost recovery factor, PUC docket number 49427, seeking to increase electric distribution rates by approximately $29,433,804. And whereas all electric utility customers residing in the city will be impacted by this rate-making proceeding, if it is granted, and whereas cities are coordinating their review of Encore's DCRF filing with designated attorneys and consultants to resolve issues in the company's application, and whereas city members and attorneys recommend members deny the DCRF, now therefore be it resolved by the City Council of the City of Colleyville, Texas, Section 1, that the city is authorized to participate with OCSC in PUC docket number 49427, Section 2, that subject to the right to terminate employment at any time, the City of Colleyville hereby authorizes the hiring of the law firm of Lloyd, Gosling, Rochelle, and Townsend, P.C., and consultants to negotiate with the company, make a recommendation to the city regarding reasonable rates, and to direct any necessary administrative proceedings or court litigation associated with an appeal of this application filed with the PUC. Section 3, that the rates proposed by Encore to be recovered through its DCRF charged to customers located within the city limits are hereby found to be unreasonable and shall be denied. Section 4, that the company shall continue to charge its existing rates to customers within the city. Section 5, that the city's reasonable rate case expenses shall be reimbursed in full by Encore within 30 days of presentation of an invoice to Encore, and it is so resolved. So that's kind of a heavy-duty resolution. So Adrian's going to explain that to everybody.
I will. I'm sorry you have to read resolutions in their entirety. That was a long one,
Yeah.
Mayor. Adrian Lothery, Assistant City Manager. So in a nutshell, Encore is seeking to increase its rates for the cities served by their lines, and they're seeking to increase their distribution revenues just over $29 million. So the process here, as Mary mentioned, the City of Colleyville participates with a number of other cities in the Encore City Steering Committee. That allows us to come together and have a much lower cost to jointly hire the legal team and rate consultants that analyze all of this data that Encore submits and do so in a way that's much less expensive for each individual city. So the purpose in denying this resolution simply allows time for that coalition of cities and their consultants to review that information in much greater detail, have some negotiation back and forth with Encore to try to ultimately have the most affordable rates possible for our Colleyville citizens. If the council chooses to go ahead and deny this resolution, that will require Encore to continue charging its existing rates for Colleyville citizens until this issue is resolved.
Yeah. It seemed like it doesn't seem like that long ago that we
It was this time last year. You're right.
Because this process actually takes a while.
It sure does.
Yeah, so I mean, it took us, what, 8 months, 7 or 8 months?
It may have been close to 6 months, yeah.
Okay, that's why it seemed like it's coming up so quickly.
Yep, you're exactly right.
It tends to be happening every year.
Yes, I would anticipate, it seems like there are a number of years where Encore was not making these types of requests, but it seems that they're going to begin making these on much more annual type basis.
So what I hope in this discussion we can all have and what you presented, that everybody recognizes we the City of Colleyville are doing everything in our power to not allow this. There are limitations, as you explained, what we can do, but we're pursuing every avenue possible to do this.
Absolutely.
Okay. Council have any questions, Adrian, or comments about this? Okay, then I'm going to open the public hearing. Public hearing is open. I have no cards. A little bit of a complicated topic, but anyone is welcome to speak or ask any questions you want, and we'll try to get them answered if you ask them. Anyone wish to speak? Sure. Just come up, state your name and address, please, sir. You need to do it in the microphone, otherwise it doesn't pick it up. Yes, right there.
My name is Trevor McTire, 5917 Hunter Lane, Colleyville.
Okay.
Question is, was the $29 million increase, is that for just Colleyville?
No, that's the whole.
That was for the whole package.
Right.
All right, thank you for the clarification.
Sure. Anyone else wish to speak?
Good question.
I see no one else indicating, so I'm going to close the public hearing. So the public hearing is closed. Yeah, so in fact, as she talked about, we'd go in with other cities to try to fight this and hire consultants together so it's not so expensive on any one party. And that seemed to work reasonably well.
Yeah, Mayor, as I understand it, and Adrian, you can correct me, as I understand it, this larger cities negotiate by themselves, Dallas, Fort Worth.
In some instances, that's correct.
Right, but the smaller cities obviously don't have the power to do that or the leverage. So by joining together with other cities, it makes it more reasonable for us. And number two, we have more power in numbers. So that's why we use this process.
Yep. There's no other discussion. A motion is in order.
Mayor, I move to approve Resolution R-19-4377.
I want to just clarify, we're voting in favor of denying.
Yes.
Okay,
That's correct.
thank you. I would like to second.
And participating in the consortium.
Just wanted to make sure
Yes.
I knew which way to vote. Thank you. I second the motion.
Okay, so Mayor Pro Tem moved to approve the resolution, which is intended to deny the rate increase, and seconded by Councilmember Wheat. Are there no other questions on the motion? Would you open the vote? You may show it when it's ready. That motion is approved, therefore the resolution is approved. We now move to agenda item 5B. This is reading and public hearing of Resolution R-19-4378, a resolution approving a preliminary plat for the Legacy North Addition. Whereas the Planning and Zoning Commission recommended approval of the preliminary plat for the Legacy North Addition on April 8, 2019. Now therefore be it resolved by the City Council of the City of Colleyville, Texas, Section 1, that the preliminary plat for Legacy North Addition on approximately 17.32 acres attached as Exhibit A, plat exhibit, is hereby approved, and it is so resolved.
Thank you. Ben Briner, Director of Community Development. As you stated, this is a request for approval of a preliminary plat for a new residential subdivision called Legacy North. It is on the north side of Lavaca Trail. This is just east of Precinct Line. Currently, it is an undeveloped piece of property, as you see on this aerial photo. If you reference on the south side of Lavaca Trail, there's an existing neighborhood called Legacy, and this is the same developer. This would be the technical document to allow them to start the infrastructure improvements, such as the streets and water and sewer lines. This map shows the previous zoning on it as I'm sorry, we've made this change. It is PUDR today. It does follow the R20 zoning district, but it is a plan unit development zoning item. There were some approvals as far as agreements with the adjacent neighbors, as well as allowing for private streets with a gated subdivision entrance. It does conform to our future land use map of residential. This is the approved zoning exhibit that you might recall. This was just approved. It was actually early this year. And so this is what was originally presented to you. They did have a plat exhibit, but this is the plat exhibit that you are considering tonight. You can see it does have the same layout as what the development plan showed. And it has that same type of entrance and landscape area along the street frontage, similar to what the existing neighborhood has to the south. I do have a lot of the civil plans as far as slides are concerned, if you have questions on those specifically, but I'm going to just kind of go through those quickly. But we've got drainage plans, grading plans, tree preservation plans, utility plans for the proposed locations for water lines and sewer lines. So again,
Ben,
we need to go.
Could you go back just a couple of slides? On the south side of each side of the entrance, I know there's a catch basin on the southwest corner, but on the right-hand side, that's also a catch basin for drainage? On the right side of the, back one more, I think.
To this side? Well, I think this shows it. You can see a lot of the closely spaced lines there in that
I understand.
bottom left. You don't have that on the other side of the street.
So there is no basin on that side?
I don't believe there's a basin there. I think it will direct water over underneath the street to that catch basin, but it's
Okay.
not going to be like what you see on that bottom left corner.
Understand. Has the plan, I'm sorry, are you through with your presentation? Because I got a couple.
I just have one more slide as far, or maybe two more slides as far as the,
Okay. Go,
just one more slide. So staff does recommend approval. It does conform to all the requirements of the Land Development Code and the PUD zoning, and Planning and Zoning Commission also recommends approval.
okay. Has the drainage plan been reviewed by our engineering group?
I know they are in the process of reviewing it right now. Any fine tuning that needs to happen, they will communicate that with the engineer and make sure that it's to code prior to any release for construction.
Okay, so what we're reviewing tonight is a preliminary plat,
That's right.
but not the final drainage, et cetera, et cetera.
It's probably very, very, very close to
Okay.
what our engineers will approve.
We don't know that, though.
I have a
now.
question, kind of related to that. Before I get there, let me just summarize for the audience
Sure.
about the zoning first. Because the zoning, a lot of time was spent on this. Can you go back to, you had a picture that showed the surrounding
The
development.
aerial photo?
Further back, yeah, probably.
Yeah, right there, yeah, that'll do. So you see there's developments all around this one, and so there were a number of citizens when this was zoned, questioning various things from drainage to buffering to whatnot, and so I'm not gonna go into all those details. Just suffice it to say, this was a PUD zoning, so the council could place conditions on it, and there was one condition placed where the developer requesting this talked to each of those developments and came up with a written agreement as to what he agreed to them that he would do. And some of this work was off-site improvements that would take care of their ponds and no silt or removing silt and things of that nature. And that is part of this PUD, those signed agreements. And so I think that's an important consideration.
Yes.
This is also based on R20 zoning. There was some question around, was it R40 or R20? It was really R40, but it was shown as R20. So for many reasons, it ended up being a PUD. So that's what we have. If anybody have any questions about the zoning, you can ask them at the public hearing also. Now, getting to the planning thing. Why isn't this a final plat?
So typically, especially with a brand-new development where there's no infrastructure, the process, multiple communities use this process. You go forward with a preliminary plat in order to give the approval to proceed with the construction portion of the public improvements. So it would be your streets as well as your water lines and sanitary sewer lines. The reason for not going to the final plat is as they start the construction phase of that, actually on the ground, moving dirt, sometimes they have to make some adjustments, which will shift an easement. It might slightly adjust some of the lot lines, but not to the level that it changes the nature of the development that was approved under the preliminary plat or even the zoning. But just minor adjustments here and there. They might have to change the curve radius for the center line of a road. And so that final plat ends up being basically an as-built as well. And so all of the dimensions will be accurate, all of your easements will be in the correct location, and then that is ultimately what gets filed at the courthouse, and that also authorizes the sale of the lots, which means that it's ready for building permits as well.
Why couldn't they sell lots right now?
Well, one concern that I have that I've seen has created a problem for some communities. They start selling lots, and if they don't put the infrastructure in, there's an expectation that they can get a building permit, but they don't have street frontage, they don't have a water line to their house or sewer line. And so to prevent that from happening, the preliminary plat gives the authorization to do all that. Then once it's acceptable and accepted by the city, then that final plat gets filed, and then they can start.
But what law is it that keeps them from selling a lot?
So with a preliminary plat, it does not get filed at the courthouse, and so there are no lots established yet. That final plat, once it's filed, those lots have been established and created through that legal process, and that
Okay, so
it's private property at that point, and they can start selling those individual lots.
okay, so you said a while ago that with the preliminary plat they can start building infrastructure.
Right, the public infrastructure.
They can
Streets.
start tomorrow. Is there any other condition before they can start?
The construction documents have to be approved by our public works engineer staff, and they review to make sure it meets all of our requirements for utility sizing, you know, your main lines, also the grading and the drainage. All of that has to be 100% accurate. They work very closely back and forth, many iterations with the engineers.
Okay, so if they do that,
wait a minute.
one more. So what you just said is they're not going to be able to start until our engineering staff reviews and they're exactly right, and we approve it. At that point, couldn't it be a final plat?
We can. I still think that there are situations to where, because it's still a ground up. The way I envision it is if you're going to build something and there's no plan, you come up with a plan to build it, and it's a good plan, but then as you actually start building this, let's say it's a bookcase or whatever the case may be, you have to make some minor changes. You didn't think of one issue or that issue, or you just want to change it because it makes more sense. You're not going to then use that same plan. You're going to have to make those adjustments to the plan. And so this just allows for a one-time final plan.
But couldn't that be, but my concern is, you said, and rightly so, and we will discuss that more until it's really pinned down, they can't start until those designs are done. And if so, that would imply to me that they could file for final plat. I think minor adjustments is easy to handle at any point. One of my concerns is, so they get a preliminary plat, they do something, or they don't finish, and this council, for whatever reason, turns down the final plat. What happens? I mean, somebody's got a problem.
After the public improvements have been made?
Yes.
Well, my opinion is through state law that you would not have that ability.
Then we should not be approving a preliminary plat, because that would mean we have no control. If something wasn't done right, that we said, hey, I mean, we've talked about this before. Yeah. That's a real problem for me.
So by bringing a final plat to you today, the graphic will be the same graphic.
Okay.
Our ordinance does authorize amendments, minor amendments under either an amending plat. In this case, if we hold the final plat to file it until those public improvements are accepted, I can administratively make those minor adjustments as well. But that exhibit that you would see today, if we had both coming today, it would be the same exhibit.
Yeah. So therefore, I'm still struggling a little bit with why can't it be a final plat? Or why wouldn't we do this at that point?
Right. And I think we can make that happen.
Yeah.
I just will remind you that at the approval of the zoning, we did have a 10-minute conversation about what we would expect for this project.
Yeah.
And it did talk about having a preliminary plat only come forward. So we are directly in line with that nice conversation, but internally we can start making that change almost immediately. So we will bring a combination preliminary final plat for some of these projects coming forward to make sure that it meets both of those requirements.
Were you going to make a comment?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, that'd be great. I respectfully disagree, and during the previous discussion, I had brought that up. I believe that a preliminary plat serves a purpose, and it is a guideline or an example of how the development is to take shape. But it's done early on in the process, before final engineering is done, before a lot of the final details have been completed. And so those final elements are to be reflected in the final plat. A final plat should not be approved until all of the engineering is done, all of the stormwater management reviews have been completed, and all of the items that have been outlined in any type of conditional PUD have been addressed. And at that time, then you would proceed. The challenge of doing it the way that it's been done in the past, and Ben references that process, is that you have a situation where the preliminary plat can expire. The preliminary plat can be subject to difference in changes that have occurred while the preliminary plat is in existence. You referenced that, Mayor, if things had changed, or if the council denied the final plat. And so one of the counter arguments related to the public improvements and having those public improvements done at the time of a lot creation. But in this particular case, the streets are not public improvements. They're private. They are not owned by the city, and so they would not be subject to that. Traditionally, the model that I've seen is that you have a preliminary plat as a guiding principle, as I mentioned previously. You have the final plat as a moment when staff is convinced that all of the required documentation and engineering is complete, and the council feels comfortable that the project has been represented sufficiently in line with their thoughts on the previous action, and that preliminary plat then starts the process moving forward. The final plat, excuse me, starts the process moving forward with construction. Traditionally, the construction for public improvements are secured by some type of security, whether it be a letter of credit, whether it be a bond, in some cases cash. And that then is the mechanism by which you have the guarantee that those improvements take place. As those improvements are completed, there's draws down and reductions in the letter of credit and/or pledge, and the project continues to proceed. I do believe there are occasions when you file a final plat and in the future you have changes that occur, and you must reflect those on either a replatting or they just become amendments that are filed separately and are caught as part of title review. And I also believe there are times when you'll have a situation where you may have a project that has something occur that causes changes. And so that does occur, and there has to be a reconsideration by the council as far as the issue goes. But the more information that is completed and finalized prior to that final plat, the less likely that occurs. And so that's why I believe that should be the case, and that's why I believe, as we did in the previous conversation, that should be the process. I can tell you that I would not allow improvements to take place on the property, whether they be private or public, until such time as a final plat has been approved and all final engineering and/or reviews are completed.
Okay.
The as-built are a different situation altogether. Once the project is complete, the engineering team from the developer would then submit as-built that the city has to compare, and they should be the same, but for minor deviations, between the original submittal that was reviewed and approved and what exists in the field at completion.
So in this case, as you pointed out, the streets are private, so they're not public. The city is not ever going to accept the streets. The city, the water, sewer, those things are.
Yes.
They will be public. So what mechanism will be used to ensure that the city, if something happens, the development stopped in the middle, that we can complete that? Does that make sense, what I'm asking?
Yes.
Okay.
And I believe the mechanism that's appropriate is either a bond, which I'm not highly in favor of. They are used, and they're a reasonable expectation from a developer, but I prefer a letter of credit. And obviously, cash is always an option. With the previous interest rate market, cash was a better option than it is today, but a letter of credit is certainly an option that can be secured, and it provides for a basis for funding traditionally the public improvements, which would be the sanitary sewer, the water lines, and or the stormwater management, because that is a public component. The streets, under this particular scenario, may or may not be qualified under that area. But our code is very specific. Building permits are not to be issued until such time as the final plat is approved and recorded and all the public improvements are in place. And so anyone who may wish to buy a lot must wait for those improvements to be put in place. And a street in front of their home that's private is a different animal altogether. They, as a member of an association, have rights and ownership that is shared. And so if there's ever an issue that arises, that's a litigation that would be a civil matter, and we would not be involved.
Yeah. So, apologize to the audience and the council a little bit, but I think it's an educational opportunity. I have belabored this, and when we zone this, I've belabored this quite a lot, because my personal opinion is when we do PUDs, I think at a minimum, we should have preliminary plats at the time of zoning. And so I think that's something we need to change in our process, if our process need to be changed. You said something, Mr. City Manager, that's important, and that is that ultimately, just through the structure of the hierarchy, ultimately it goes to the development director, but eventually you, in terms of the decision points. And what you said, I'm not going to approve something to be done until all the final engineering is completed.
That's correct.
Correct?
Right.
And that's really one thing I'm after in all this discussion. And the other one is to ensure that it will be built to city specifications appropriately to the zoning and the platting. Those are critical points.
Yep.
And so that's really what I was after. And I do think we need to take a relook at our PUD zoning to ensure we get platting and zoning in alignment better. I think, my opinion, I know, Ben, you may have a different opinion, that's okay, but just from the structure of, is it going to get done? Is it done? Is the design completed, and are they done? And the city checking that to make sure it's done that way? Does that make sense? Does that?
It does make sense. And that's why a lot of developments are phased.
Yes.
Because a developer may not want to take on all of that infrastructure improvement at one time. This is a smaller subdivision, so
Yeah,
it's not an issue.
and I don't want to appear to be picking on this subdivision. I'm not. It's just it's important, these processes that we're talking about.
Absolutely.
And how they work.
I would like to say that, of course, this is my specialty. This is what I do, reading plans and cut and grade. And these are well put together. The cut lots in between, the drainage, the large underground feeder flowers, the tie-ins. This guy's put some cash into these sets of plans. Also, there was a question about the pond that's existing out there. What are we going to do with the saturation of that pond? Well, normally what happens is they'll dig the muck out and they'll put in clay select fill, and they'll put it in 6 to 8 inch lifts and have it tested. And so those houses will be substantially, actually probably even on better grounds than the rest of it. So these plans, as I went through every single bit of them, they did really well. I like how they made the ponds 10 foot deep, the overflows, how they took the drainage from the other lots. This is going to be really special. It's going to look really nice. So there's not a corner cut in these plans right here.
Yeah. And I wasn't
Thank you
trying
for
to
that,
imply.
Bobby.
George, do you?
I was just going to say, the reason I think, if I understand it correctly, because of the significant issues in this plot, I guess is the right term, of drainage, and drainage is a dramatic situation, for this situation, that until the city engineers have opportunity to review all of those things, it seems to me like we shouldn't give a go-ahead.
That's correct.
Is that what you're saying, right?
Yes, and one of the challenges we're going to see more and more in this community as we reach build-out is the parcels that are going to develop are going to be more and more challenging.
Yes.
They'll either be redevelopment that didn't provide for stormwater management when they were first developed, or parcels that had stormwater management problems that made development not as cost-effective in the past.
Yep.
And so now it's even more important than usual, than in usual cases, that we have a stringent application. This developer is exceptional, there's no doubt about that, and there's no issue here. But these rules are not set because of this developer. They're set for the ones that may or may not, follow all of the rules to the degree we would expect.
Exactly, and as I understand, several of the drainage issues that you're dealing with are exactly that, where someone has come in and built something, next to an existing area, and the overflow changes, and if those aren't managed very, very closely, we end up with severe issues in in our
Yeah,
citizens.
And over time,
situation.
that's one of the reasons, I mean, we have several reasons we're doing this master drainage plan, but catching those things so we can figure out what to do about them is
Upfront.
one of them, right?
Up front,
Yeah.
before they get built, before they get designed, yeah.
So, I guess the only thing that surprised me, we did talk about this a lot at zoning, about the preliminary plat, and I guess the only thing that surprised me is, I thought that was gonna happen immediately, and it didn't. It's been quite a while since zoning. I didn't understand that.
It was approved February 5th.
Yeah.
Of it. We took it to the Planning and Zoning Commission as well.
Yeah, okay.
Last month.
Okay.
So it's, what date was that? April 13th, I think.
Okay.
So it's just a timing issue more than anything else.
Okay. So, I'm hearing, my general sense is, hey, we don't really expect any kind of issue here. I heard from city manager, designs are gonna be in place for something. I mean, just because this gets approved tonight, doesn't mean somebody can go out there and start building. It means the
Right.
designs have to be done and agreed to by the city. Then building can start,
That's
correct?
Right.
Okay.
Our city engineers have to formally
Stamp it.
approve all
Not
of these
stamp it,
plans.
yeah. Okay.
Yes.
Have I missed
Well,
anything?
Yes, just a clarification.
Okay.
And the additional element is that I would not allow that to proceed until the final plat has been approved by this council.
Okay.
So
And,
that's different.
So that's
than what was said.
very critical, yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
You will more than likely see this final plat in July.
Okay.
The-
That's it's a comfort
I mean,
factor.
if I'm
for me.
reading
So, because if
correct-
all the designs are done, the final plat can be done. So, I mean,
Well,
Yes, that's
and
the
if it's
requirement.
July, it's
and
July, it doesn't
approvals.
matter to me. I
Yeah.
just- Yeah,
from yes,
There are,
okay,
we can work it out.
yeah,
there are occasions where you'd have a situation where you'd have a final plat conditioned upon final engineering,
Yeah.
but I do not expect that.
Yeah.
My anticipated discussion in the next level is the final plat is coming to you because all engineering has been
Done.
completed
Okay.
and approved to the city
Okay.
standards.
okay.
And, Mr. City Manager, you mentioned requiring some kind of deposit or bond or so forth. Do we have to change our process to make that happen?
Our code currently provides for that. There are some options, and I think that we will exercise those, but right now, those are the three options. One area of consideration may be because of the unique nature of this project, may be some type of security that provides for a restoration to previous condition rather than a completion.
Okay.
But we'll look at those types of options as we go through this. Traditionally, the security is for public improvements.
Understand.
And because you have so much of the roadway here that it's private, it would be unreasonable to try to capture that entire burden at 120%.
Oh, I agree, but for the sewers, the storm sewers, and the water lines and all that, that's reasonable to request that, right?
Yes, and in some cases, it would be, in other cases where there's public streets, it'd be public streets, sidewalks,
course.
parkway trees, all of the streetlights, all of the design standard requirements in a subdivision.
Okay,
As this is private, there's a different level of ownership in those.
understand.
But yes, you're
But
correct.
would we do that for the final plat then?
Yes, that
Okay.
would be, that's a condition of the final plat.
Great,
And that's a requirement on the staff level.
okay, thank you.
Okay.
I appreciate the education.
Yeah,
Thank
no,
you very
I
much.
appreciate all the discussion. Thank you, Ben. Are we ready to go to public hearing?
It's just, we're gonna try to be reasonable in this transition.
course.
Because this is the first, and so it's
Yeah.
kind of, difficult to be the first under this system. So we will apply some reasonableness in our application of the value for the improvements, but not the level of the quality of the improvements.
Fine, I understand.
Okay, if there's no more questions, I'm going to open the public hearing. Public hearing is open. Any cards? Kathy Hadley?
Kathy Hadley, I represent myself at 204 Timberline Drive North. I have been following this from day one, and I have been always requesting that those be nice, big lots. And when the developer came up with this plan, it's like, well, yeah, it sounded pretty good. Bobby, sounded like, yeah, it did sound good and everything. However, Colleyville is running out of land. And look at that. It is just massive houses all around it. Make them nice, big lots. You won't have a drainage problem. You know, that won't be an issue. So I'm against this project, and I appreciate the wise counsel that I'm hearing out there. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Any more cards?
No, sir.
That's all the cards I have. Anyone else wish to speak? Mrs. Hennessy, are you indicating? Come on up. And state your name and address.
Kathleen Hennessy, 5013 Stonebridge Drive. I would just like to make comments based on bitter experience with the preservation, which is right in my backyard, 40 feet above my backyard. This is the process. We were very worried about stormwater drainage. We had long meetings. We agreed with the developer. This is before the current city council were here. We had agreements on every single square foot of that development, on exactly how it was going to be put in and how the stormwater was going to be diverted to the north and the south of our development. And we watched carefully, and we watched every single thing. And then suddenly, when the builder came in, they bulldozed away all the terracing, everything. They completely redesigned it. And now I have 5 neighbors who, with the stormwater, just the last few days, 2 of them came to me and said, "You know what? I have absolutely no grass on this part of my lawn, and the reason why is because the stormwater comes straight from the preservation, straight down, right across my lawn." And they said, "You know, we feel betrayed by the city because the city did not enforce the plans and all the terms of construction that we agreed to before we would withdraw our objection." So I would ask you, please, I very, very much like the idea that you're really getting a handle on enforcing the entire process and not just walking away as soon as planning permission is given. But please, because my neighbors are suffering as a result of that lapse. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else wish to speak? I see no one indicating they do, so I'm going to close the public hearing.
I'd like to say something, Mayor, if you don't.
Yeah, let me close the
Go
public
ahead.
hearing. Public hearing is closed.
And because of the preservation, I take that to heart. I remember many hours we spent over there looking at that project, and I made sure through these drainage issues that they have over here, that not only are we catching what's north of them, but we're funneling it all the way down to the south and through different properties and bigger holding tanks. We don't want those drainage issues like you guys are going through. I'm sorry that you guys are going through that, but I did do my due diligence to make sure that these are all proper, and hopefully they won't have the same issues that you guys do. They shouldn't, according to these plans.
Yeah, it was a tough problem. Preservation, probably the worst case I've ever seen.
Yeah, it was terrible.
Because of the elevation change that you are under.
This actually has almost a 30-foot drop from east to west, and
Yeah.
so, but their catch basins and their drainage ends,
But Miss
they're
Cindy,
done correctly.
Yeah, Miss Cindy made a point. The real issue, the design of that actually was decent, but the design got destroyed.
Yeah.
And it
Oh, I
had to be
agree.
put back as best as it could be. So
agree.
we got to really, really watch that. Okay. So any other questions or comments by the council? Because we've already had a public hearing, so the next step would be a motion unless we want to talk about it some more.
I'm making a motion to approve Resolution R-19-4378.
I'll second.
Okay, have a motion to approve by Mayor Pro Tem Lindamood, a second by Councilmember Nakamura. Would you open, if no more discussion on the motion, open the vote, please. May show it when it's ready. So the motion is approved, therefore the resolution is approved. Thank you. We'll move to agenda item 5C. This is reading and public hearing of Resolution R-19-4379. A resolution approving a preliminary plat for the precinct line retail addition, whereas the Planning and Zoning Commission recommended approval of the preliminary plat for the precinct line retail addition on April 8, 2019. Now therefore be it resolved by the City Council of the City of Colleyville, Texas, Section 1, that the preliminary plat for precinct line retail addition on approximately 6.382 acres attached as Exhibit A, plat exhibit, is hereby approved and is so resolved.
Thank you. As you stated, this is a preliminary plat for property off of Precinct Line Road, the Precinct Line Retail Edition. We have a subsequent, after this item, there is a final plat item as well. This is on the east side of Precinct Line Road, just south of Lavaca Trail, and it's north of LD Lockett. You will recall you recently approved zoning to allow for a self-storage facility as well as 3 restaurant retail lots up adjacent to Precinct Line Road. It is zoned PUDC, Plan Unit Development Commercial, to authorize those uses. And it is designated as commercial on our future land use map. So this is a preliminary plat for the entire tract. And as I stated, it will be 4 total lots. One, which is the largest lot, that most of it's to the rear or the right-hand side of this exhibit. That's for the self-storage property. And then the 3 outlots up front adjacent to the street for retail and restaurant. I'll go ahead and jump the gun a little bit, but the next item is going to be for just the final plat for just related to the self-storage property only.
Okay.
And I can explain, well.
You just answered one of my questions, which
Okay.
was going to be why it wasn't a combination preliminary final, but it's 2 pieces.
2 pieces.
Okay.
If they were going to plat all of it at once, they would have done that.
Yeah.
Anyway, so this really just sets the stage for a 4-lot subdivision on this property. We do have civil plans specific only for the self-storage property itself. They do have an approved site plan. So we have that information. I'll just go through it quickly. It includes utility layout as well as drainage and all that. Staff does recommend approval, as does the Planning and Zoning Commission.
Okay.
Question again, Ben. We saw, and I know we saw in detail, the setup for the storage. The question is, has the staff reviewed every part of the drainage and everything else, or is this just like the other?
No, this is really how our ordinance is set up for situations like this. This property has gone through a site plan process. It is approved, which included full engineering, so utility, drainage, grading, the whole 9 yards. We've got building elevations, and it all conforms to the existing PUD zoning.
Even signage.
Even signage.
Yeah, we went through this before, and we had them change some of the drainage on it before.
Yes, that's right. So they've increased the drainage pond, but they are going to be capturing all of the drainage from the front lots as well as a larger basin area, but that's already approved through our site plan approval process, and it is ready to go.
So they actually reduced the size of the storage buildings because of the increase, the holding pond, is that correct?
No, the square footage of the buildings was able to be maintained. They adjusted some of the interior drive lanes, but kind of the give and take was an increased and better design for the detention area.
Okay. On this diagram, what are the dotted lines coming from the south to the north?
That's just the offsite drainage that they'll be catching. It's kind of the individual.
It's not a tile or anything, right? It's just the drainage?
Right.
I'm just trying to figure out.
So they'll be capturing some of that runoff from that property to the south just a little bit.
Okay, so I see a catch basin, I think, about halfway up by.
Yes.
That's right. On the west side?
By that middle building on.
Right.
Yes.
Now, are there catch basins on the south here or not?
I think what they do is direct it around the building to get up to the detention pond.
Okay.
You can see how the arrow's directed around.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's hard to see the arrows on this.
Yeah, on this exhibit, it's not.
Got a lot of
very well
pavement
the
run on
monitor.
this. It's not not a whole lot of underground. It's more
I
pavement
understand.
run.
Yeah, it's overground. Yeah,
Yeah.
understand that. Okay.
And they are working with the adjacent property owner to the east as well as far as the offsite improvements to discharge it into that natural creek area.
And
Right.
there was an email within the packet from, regarding that very effort.
Yes.
And the last correspondence from the neighbor's engineer was March 25th, saying that, thank you for sending the plans. We will review and let you know if we have any comments. Have you had any conversations with Mr. Assad, the engineer, to ensure that there's?
Not with Mr. Assad, but I just talked with the applicant right before the meeting. He says that they are very close to finalizing everything. I think that the design has been approved. Now it's just working out the final details as far as the aesthetics to it.
What happens if they say there is an issue?
Then they will not be able to get the building permit.
In other words, you will make sure that's resolved before?
Right, because that was part of the zoning approval.
Okay.
And so we do have a building permit that has been submitted just very recently. And so as part of our review process, we will not issue the building permit until we have all these pieces in place.
Okay.
So it sounds like it is very close.
Could you be a little bit more specific with me? I'm not clear what the changes have been since we looked at this before and now. Could you describe those?
Sure. So it really is in relation to the top right portion of
Okay.
this. And so it previously allowed for a drive lane to go onto the right-hand side of that top middle building. What they've done is increase the width of the detention area, and so it eliminated that drive lane that went around the backside of that building.
Okay.
Where the F1 is.
It's pretty significant.
Right, and
Yes.
Increase.
they did spread out a little bit that building as well, but we required additional masonry requirements and other enhancements to that
Okay, so the
corner that was now visible.
Okay, so what I don't remember, was that back there for fire purposes, fire access or not, or?
It was more just internal.
No.
Okay, circulation.
It could have worked for a fire lane, but it was
Yeah.
not needed. They have the appropriate fire lanes
Okay.
there in between those two buildings.
Did the width of the roadways or the passageways in the development get squeezed down?
No.
Okay, good.
Yeah, what they did, it used to go straight up, right? The passageways went up and.
I don't think it stayed
went around
straight
the
the whole
building,
way.
didn't
I
it?
think they did always have that S turn in it.
Okay. As I recall, at least I know the basin was much narrower.
Yeah, it was narrower.
Right.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay.
By widening that out, they were able to reduce the wall heights
Okay.
and get a better design.
Okay. Good.
They can do some landscaping and other things to it.
Okay.
So the flow is from the bottom of this up to the top right, is that correct?
Yes.
So from a flow standpoint, so when these front pads are constructed, there'll be buildings and a lot of parking. Was that considered in how much water is going to come from that?
Yes.
Okay.
That'll be paved over almost,
Yeah.
right?
Okay.
Yep, all that was already accounted for,
Okay.
so this will be size 2 full
Do
build
that.
out.
Okay.
Okay.
Very good.
It
Very good.
avoids having stormwater management on smaller outlots.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's why we have that inlet
Nice.
there on the
sure.
left-hand side of the self-storage
Yep.
to capture all of that water.
Okay.
Okay.
Just want to make sure.
Very good. We
Thank you,
ready?
Dave.
Any more? We're ready to open
I don't
public
have any
hearing.
more questions.
Okay, I'm going to open the public hearing. Public hearing is open. Kathy Hadley?
Kathy Hadley, 204 Timberline Drive North, to represent myself. I went to this meeting and the gentleman really worked with everybody, trying to get it all worked out, and sounds like it's gonna be very nice, and so I think it's gonna be great. I approve of this.
Okay, thank you. Does anyone else wish to speak on this? If you do, just let me know. I see no one indicating they do. I'm going to close the public hearing. If not, public hearing's closed. Council, you can talk about it or make a motion.
I move the adoption of Resolution R-19-4379.
I'll second.
Okay, I have a motion to approve by Councilmember Dodson, a second by Councilmember Rigney, I believe, correct?
Yes.
Okay, would you open the vote, please? So that motion is approved, therefore the resolution is approved. Moving to agenda item 5D, which is practically going to be identical. All right? Okay.
All right, so this is a final plat, and it will be for Lot 1 of the previous plan that you saw. So I'll just get to the exhibit.
Excuse me, Mayor. Would you please read the resolution before he does the presentation?
Oh, yes. I would do that. Thank you. Resolution R-19-4380. A resolution approving a final plat for Lot 1, Block 1, Precinct Line Retail Edition. Whereas the Planning and Zoning Commission recommended approval of the final plat for Lot 1, Block 1 of the Precinct Line Retail Edition, case PC 19-003 on April 8, 2019. Now therefore be it resolved by the City Council of the City of Colleyville, Texas, Section 1, that the final plat for Lot 1, Block 1, Precinct Line Retail Edition on approximately 3.404 acres attached as Exhibit A, plat exhibit, is hereby approved, and it's so resolved.
Thanks. So this would be just for Lot 1. Again, this does have an approved site plan for development for that site. The other 3 sites, no submissions at this time as far as any development on those sites, so those will stay under the preliminary status. Once they go through that formalized site plan process and receive approval of that, that authorizes them to come back with a final plat. And it could be all 3 together, it could be one at a time. So for today, the only lot that is ready to go is this, the one for the self-storage property. Okay. Staff recommends approval, as does Planning and Zoning Commission.
Okay. Any questions? I'm going to open public hearing. Public hearing is open. Have any cards? No cards. Anyone wish to speak on this item? See no one indicating that, so I'm going to close the public hearing. Public hearing is closed. Okay, so I guess the one commitment I heard you say, we had this little bit of an outstanding issue or question, I guess, about finalizing the agreement with the adjacent property owner. We know there's big issue there, and you said, hey, that's going to have to be done before anything happens. Okay. All right. Okay.
Do we need to include that in the
I believe that's part of zoning, you said, Ben, is that correct? So you already have all the authorization, the authority for that.
Okay, just want to make sure.
Yeah.
Doesn't have to be in the motion. Thank you.
Yeah, so a motion would be in order, if there's no question.
Public hearing.
I had the public hearing. I had the public hearing, no one spoke.
Okay, I'll approve resolution, or I'll ask for approval of resolution R-19-4380.
I'll second.
Have a motion to approve by Mayor Pro Tem Lindemood, a second by Councilmember Rigney. There's no discussion. Would you open the vote? You may show it. Oh, there it is. I'm sleeping. Motion's approved, the resolution approved. Okay, guys, I need 5 minutes. I'm going to recess for 5 minutes. I apologize. I mean 5 minutes. City manager, Bobby's here.
Jerry, just walk that way. He went to the restroom.
Let's go. Okay, I'm going to reconvene the meeting at 9:03. We are reconvened. We're moving to agenda item 5E. This is reading and public hearing of Resolution R-19-4381. Approval of a construction services agreement with the Fain Group, Inc. for the Colleyville Plaza project in an amount not to exceed $2,774,547.50. That's pretty exact. And authorizing the city manager to execute the agreement. Whereas the city of Colleyville solicited sealed bids for the construction of Colleyville Plaza, and whereas the city received 8 sealed bids, which were opened and publicly read aloud on April 23rd, 2019, and whereas the city has chosen the Fain Group, Inc. to be the successful bidder as determined by best value to the city of Colleyville as allowed by Chapter 252 of the Local Government Code, now therefore be it resolved by the City Council of the City of Colleyville, Texas, Section 1, that the above findings are found to be true and correct and are incorporated herein by reference as if copied in their entirety. Section 2, that the construction services agreement with the Fain Group, Inc. attached as Exhibit A in the amount not to exceed $2,774,547.50. That's $2,468,693 for the base bid and $305,854.50 for alternate number 1 is hereby approved. Section 3, that the city manager is authorized to execute the agreement, and it is so resolved. Okay, Adrian.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Adrienne Lothery, Assistant City Manager again. So tonight kind of brings to the culmination a quite long effort.
Yes.
And when I say long, I put a time frame up here to talk to you about just where this started a number of years ago. So if you remember back to 1998 with the creation of our tax increment financing district, at that time, back in 1998, the TIF was created via Ordinance 098-1124. And in that original TIF creation ordinance, it outlined an original project plan. There were a number of projects identified in that plan. One of those was a plaza for the city of Colleyville. And the plaza, you know, at the time, the projects as they were listed in that original project plan didn't have a whole lot of detail in terms of location or specific elements to be included in the project. But at that time, the estimate back in 1998 was about $2.7 million. And you know, so that was included for a number of years, and it wasn't until the city purchased the property just out front of City Hall, out our front door, in March of 2017, that we really began to take shape on where such plaza, you know, might be appropriate. So that kind of re-engaged and re-energized that conversation, and then we began our process of figuring out what might that plaza look like. So we engaged design firm Freese & Nichols. We have Shane Freese and Wendy Chabet here this evening. We've got a whole team of folks that have worked on this project. And we engaged Freese & Nichols to really help us with that conceptual design. When you start with kind of a blank area and you think plaza, well, what does that include? What shape is it? What elements are there? So we had Freese & Nichols put together 3 different conceptual designs that we then took out to the community at a number of open houses, public events, had comment cards out at the farmers market, at the movie nights, trying to find as many ways as possible to seek public input on, you know, do we want a fountain? Do we not want a fountain? Do we want a shade structure? You know, do we want extra shade? What kind of seating might we like to see? Got some really fantastic feedback from the community. Took all of that and then ultimately brought back forward the final conceptual design to you all, the City Council. And that was kind of in the March to May 2018 time frame. And then once we had done all that and brought that feedback back to you all, you'll recall that we went through our more detailed design engineering process. So Freese & Nichols came back and we made a presentation at the 50% design point, started to begin fine-tuning those details, selecting some different materials for the project, came back at the 95% design point, began selecting some of the real specific elements like the art panels that you may recall, talked about some potential expanded area. You'll recall that our conversation began to include, although it does include the plaza area for the land directly across from City Hall, as a part of that conversation, we determined that it might be appropriate to look at adding some project scope to the area directly in front of City Hall to the end of the block to provide that consistent overall aesthetic to the area. So it began to include some of that information in the project. So ultimately, we finalized those construction documents, placed those out to bid, and we've had a really strong activity in terms of the number of contractors participating at our pre-bid meetings, the number of plan holders that we've had. Ultimately had bid opening on April 23rd and had 8 bids that were received. So tonight we're here to go through a little bit of that information. But before I do that, I wanted to flash a final rendering up here. We've obviously looked at a lot of images as we've gone through this process, from conceptual to final design, and we had Friese & Nichols do a final update from this viewpoint, kind of coming down the steps of the front of City Hall, just to remind everyone one last time kind of what that official rendering looked like and what those final elements were. So I think that's a great representation of what the plaza includes. For those that aren't familiar and haven't walked this last year or so journey with us, I'll mention a few highlights that I think are worth noting. When you come down the front steps of City Hall, you'll see that there is a fountain there. To your left, what is currently a road for cars to traverse on will soon become pedestrian only if we move forward with this project. And there will be some removable bollards just to the right of where that person is standing in the foreground. That will allow food trucks to come in for events if we choose to remove those and bring those in for different concerts and festivals and community activities. You'll see lots of seating walls all the way around the grass and the green open space so that folks can enjoy concerts, and we don't always have to bring in lawn chairs if we don't want to, but they're certainly welcome to. But I think lots of built-in seating is important for that space. You'll also see kind of in the left area over there a shade structure that is intended to also serve the purpose of a stage. So that has been designed to include the electrical necessities and whatnot for performers if they want to stand on that stage and then perform out to the green space. There's a bit of a raised seating area on the back end and lots of landscaping throughout. Tried to include as many shade trees as possible. That was some feedback that we heard from the citizens. This ultimate rectangular design provided a bit more of grass and open space than one of the earlier designs that we looked at, so that was why we moved forward with that. But happy to answer any questions you have, technical or conceptual. Of course, any of our team can this evening as well, but wanted to just provide that kind of recap of what the project includes. So this next slide summarizes the bids that were received. So you'll see that we've got the numbers outlined in 2 different columns. The base bid, which represents the original portion of the project, the plaza, and then that area directly coming up to the front wall of the library here. And then the add alternate number 1, which is the expanded area here directly in front of City Hall that includes consistent hardscape, the seal that we went through that design process of determining the more Texas-style star. You may recall that conversation. So that's add alternate number 1, and then of course the grand total. So we received 8 bids ranging on the base bid side from about 2.2 to 3.9 million, all in total. So quite a wide range there of bids received. And of course, when we bid this project, we did so from a best value perspective, not just a straight low bid. We want to make sure that we get the best contractor in for the job. This is a really important project. There's a lot of important design elements. There's also a tight time frame. One of the goals that we set forward in the bid documents and in the contract was the 180-day requirement with liquidated damages for not completing the project on time. It's really important that if we move forward with this and continue to set that goalpost of having our tree lighting ceremony in the first weekend of December, we want to make sure that the plaza is open and ready to go in order to have that tree lighting ceremony in the new plaza space. So that was a key criteria when we reviewed this. And of course, Shane from Friese & Nichols can speak a little bit more about the different scoring criteria, but I think at this point I'll pass it over to our Friese & Nichols team to share a few words about kind of their role in this process and their review of those bids.
Good evening,
Hi.
Wendy Chabay with Friese & Nichols. First of all, just as a resident, I want to say congratulations to everybody that's back up on the dais. I was at the elections on the polls on Saturday and stood in line, and that's always a good thing. I appreciate people that are willing to give their service to the city. So thank you for that. And as a person who frequents a lot of the businesses in this area, I've been very excited to tell everybody about the possibility of this plaza. Everybody I've talked to at Elixir and Eyes on Main Street and different places around here, they've been very excited. I think this is a great thing for not only the community just within this area, but just also a focal point. Shane Freeze is here. You know, he's been intimately involved on this project. If you have any questions related to cost or anything, he can certainly answer that. Also want to introduce Larry Frazier with the Fane Group. We have worked with the Fane Group in the past on various cities and projects, and so we're pleased when we saw the names come back on this project, have confidence in their ability. So with that, I think we'll open it up to any questions you have.
Thank you. Council, have questions? Or did Adrian, did you want to say anything else?
No, I'll just wrap it up and say, as you can see here in the bolded area, that in terms of the overall scoring, we had our design team with Freeze and Nichols score, as well as our city engineering staff go through that criteria and evaluation process, and came back, and when we looked at all those, there was a unanimous recommendation to recommend the contract to the Fane Group. I'll go ahead and comment that the low bid, Denko, in terms of our due diligence and researching, we had some concerns. You may have seen some not so favorable newspaper articles and some concerns that were brought to staff attention. So that kind of immediately gave us some concern in evaluating that low bidder. And there wasn't a whole lot of information out about the second lowest bid. And when it came back in terms of that best scoring and best value criteria, it was really apparent that we thought the Fane Group would be the best able to accomplish the job for a fair price. So that's why that's recommended. We do have the rubric of the detailed scoring criteria, and of course can answer any of those questions, but did want to share that information with you all, and again, happy to answer any questions you all may have.
I'd like to piggyback off of what she said. I did my homework on the Fane Group, and actually I know some of those other contractors on there, and they do excellent work. Two other contractors that I've talked to about it, and so I'm kind of glad that you guys are recommending these to work with. Sometimes the lowest bid's not the best bid, and I'm glad that you guys are looking over that. And out of my suggestion is that I think that you did very well by picking the Fane Group.
Good. Good feedback to hear. I will mention that Shane and I have had a lot of conversation about the pricing and making sure that we felt that that was fair and appropriate. And given the fact that the project does have an expedited time frame and is a pretty tight constraint there, we were curious as to whether that had any impact on the pricing. And in conversation, at least with the Fane Group, it appears that that was not something that ultimately ended up inflating the price that we received. So that was good to hear. Of course, if we had felt that that was something to be concerned about, we could have looked at changing those parameters to achieve a more favorable price. But in this situation, it sounds like that was not something that was inflated due to the time frame included.
Okay.
And one piece of clarity, I've never worked with the Fane Group. I know that there's a little conception that I may have worked with some of those groups that are being picked. Our company has never worked with these guys, so I want that to be on record as well.
We'll put that in the minutes. Well, then if you're presented, I propose we open the public hearing, and we may hear some questions that we can then react to after that. Is that okay?
I was just going to make one comment or ask a question. As I recall, the early estimates that we got from the Fane Group were considerably lower than this. Do they have a message?
Are you thinking of the design consultant, Freeze and Nichols?
Freeze Nichols.
Oh.
Yeah,
I mean Freeze and Nichols, I'm sorry.
Just want to make sure I answered
the design group, we're sitting right, people sitting right behind you.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
I wonder if they could just give a general overview of why they think the bids came in higher.
Higher than the estimate.
What's the question? I missed the question.
Why? So the question is, so the design group, Freeze and Nichols, made as we always have our design groups estimate what they think the bids will come in. The bids came in more than you estimated. So the question was, do you have an assessment of that, why that occurred?
Shane Freeze with Freeze and Nichols, happy to be here. That's something that we initially looked at because it did come back higher than we anticipated. The last cost estimate we did was at 95%. That was mid-November. We followed the normal process through this cost estimate that we normally do. We take numbers from other bid tabs. We look at TxDOT. We talk to colleagues. I followed that process. My team followed that process. 90% of the time, we're right in the middle of those bids. On reflection, I studied the bid tabs to see if there was any one category we were consistently low or we just missed it. And there was a real variation in some of the bid tab items. For instance, one of them, the low bid was $33,000. The high bid of the 8 bidders was $333.
I noticed that actually in several places. So I noticed that also.
And so I'm not a general contractor, but the way I understand it is that they put money in different buckets, so how they might break it out. And if there was any confusion in our package, we would normally get a question through the bid process to kind of provide that clarification. We did issue one addenda to clarify some questions, but they weren't related to some of these. I highlighted 5 areas that were really much higher than what we expected. What it comes down to me, at the end of the day, is that this project is unique. I'm not doing one of these a month or 2 of these every month. We kind of have the perfect storm of a really detailed project. We're trying to capture a lot of the details in City Hall. We have a limited construction site. This is essentially an infill project, not a lot of laydown area for contractors or staging areas. So just some of those things I think factored into it. In hindsight, my big takeaway from this is projects like this should probably carry a larger contingency. We started, if you'll remember, at 60% with a 20% contingency. As we get closer to 100%, we narrowed that back down to 12%. Had I kept that 20% contingency, I would have been more in line with the pricing that we saw.
Okay. No, I appreciate that. Just, you know, it's just as a kind of detail person, I tend to focus on that, but I appreciate, you know, all the analysis that you did. In fact, I have, you know, some of the work here, and I appreciate your looking at each individual item because that's really significant.
Yeah, new yearly pricing goes in. So we were in November, and then after the first of the year, our new, as a contractor, you know that our new pricing goes in after the first on a lot of items. Concrete has fluctuated even higher now. It's just, I'm glad we're catching it before it goes crazy during the summertime. So that, in our field, that's the reason why we see that influx as well.
Okay.
Okay.
I'd be remiss if I didn't mention one other thing. So this process has obviously been a journey with community effort, council effort, and working with our design team, but Ray, our Public Works Director, and Corey and our Public Works team have been, and also Petite, I can't fail to mention her, have been critical in working through a lot of these details and, you know, kind of behind the scenes, making sure that, you know, obviously don't have the engineering expertise, but they do, and I'm so thankful that we have such experts on our staff to make sure that we're covered from all angles, and they did a really fantastic job in working with everyone on this.
Okay. Very good. Well, I'm going to open the public hearing.
Can I ask one
Yes,
question?
sure.
Do you guys happen to have a picture of the cantilever of the stage? Or is,
Oh, yeah.
I was just curious if you did or not.
I can pull one up that's not the final. It's
that's
not
fine.
a colored rendering, but I can probably go pull one up for you.
I was just curious because I know we're on Facebook Live and we have audience out here, and I'm not for sure if anybody's really noticed the front of the stage and how magnificent it looks and the artwork that goes into the metal works to the side. That
Let me go see if I
this
can
is
pull
all
that
first
final artwork
class.
for you. Yeah.
This is first class. What we're going to put
Yeah,
in
it's
our
nice.
park.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll grab that while you're doing the public hearing.
Go ahead, Mayor. Sorry.
Okay, so I'm going to open the public hearing. Public hearing is open. Do you have any cards? Oh, okay. Kathy Hadley? Is the only card we have?
Yes,
Okay.
those are all.
Okay. Yeah.
Kathy Hadley, 204 Timberline Drive North, to represent myself. This sounds wonderful and everything. My biggest concern is $2 million and there's a time frame. Kind of sounds like Highway 26. Lots of money and a time frame. My son started high school and now he's a junior and he's getting ready to, the summer's coming. It's going to be 4 years coming up. Time frames, I would like for y'all to have something in place that you're going to hold these people's feet to the fire to get it done so it doesn't drag on and on. It looks beautiful, looks great, whatever. $2 million is a lot of money. But it sounds like they had a lot of people that checked out. But let's not have something drag on and on, please.
Okay, thank you. Have anyone else wish to speak in the audience? Yes, sir. Yes, state your name and address, please.
Trevor Magner, 5917 Hunter Lane. Question, it sounds like that the standard project management type things have been done. Is there, I was smiling earlier because it was funny that I said, I was thinking about the same thing she did. Is that, is there been a bond or a line of credit for the aforementioned liquidated damages put into the plan?
Okay. We'll answer that.
Yeah, that's just my question.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. Anyone else wish to speak in the audience? Yes, sir.
Tony Saris, 5000 Montclair, Colleyville. This seems like something really nice that the citizens have been asking for, a place for them to gather, to have community events and those kind of things. So you're really responding to something that's been asked for in several surveys. As indicated, there was several opportunities for the public to give input from March to May in 2018. I know I received Facebook postings, emails. It was on the city website. So looks like due diligence has been done to try to get community input. So yeah, it is a lot of money, but it sounds like it's going to be really nice. There's a lot of other projects that the city needs, but we can't just focus on only one thing. So this is a nice thing for the city. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else wish to speak in the audience? I see no one else so indicating. I do have some emails came in I was handed that aren't here, weren't able to speak. So Rachel and John Donnell support. Sam Van Bever supports. Randy Elder supports. David Westrick supports. Scott Netherton supports. Matt Cook supports. Claudia Bevel supports. That's all the information I have. If no one else wishes to speak, I'm going to close the public hearing. I see no one indicating. So the public hearing is closed. So just one thing I'll say, kind of the history, you gave a lot of it. This originated back in the tax increment financing district when it was put in place. It was an original project in 1998. At that time, there was no village existing. At that time, the city hall was going to be built across the street where the Justice Center and Colleyville Center is. But it's really interesting to me that long ago it's the same amount of money that this bid is. I mean, because it's kind of guesswork. But the project was there, which meant even that many years ago, the city understood that this is an important thing to do for the community. We're really focusing on events to get people here, to build community in the city, to have people create events that are consistent over time, so that people come into the city and in reality spend their money here, as well as become our friends. So And it just so happens that after 1998, the City Hall got moved over here, so the location is only now getting pinned down. But I just wanted to point out, when it was originally conceived of, really the expectation was going to be over there because that's where City Hall was planned to be. But that doesn't matter. It was planned for back then for a couple of decades, and so it's finally coming to fruition. And so I appreciate that. I mean, it's good.
Mayor,
I'm for it.
go ahead.
Yes.
I was just going to say, the contract does provide for a withholding of damages if the contractor fails to perform of up to $2,000 per day.
Yeah. So, yeah, I thank you, because the questions were, is there a time frame? There is a time frame, 180 days.
Absolutely.
Not done in 180 days, it's going to cost somebody money. So to Kathy's and your point, the question was about bonding too. I'm not sure about that.
Yeah, there would be a normal performance bond on this project.
Performance bond too. So we're trying to cover those.
Mayor, I forgot to ask earlier. Oh, I'm sorry, go ahead. You
No, I
were
was just
gonna
going to
show-
say, if you look at the screen there, that's a non-colored version of looking straight forward to the stage, at least on the top two sections. You'll see that there are two supporting poles kind of towards the middle, and there's a cantilevered kind of roof shade structure across the top. On the sides, there was a neat opportunity to create those artistic panels of some neat artwork, and we went back and forth on what the appropriate design was for those, and ultimately settled on kind of some branches and leaves type design, which you can see there in the bottom left, probably the clearest, but it's going to be a really beautiful overall structure.
Not the picture you were thinking about, though, I know.
What's that?
You don't have a colored one.
Do you also have the one of the seal? I think
I do.
I think I happened to be out of town that one day we had this final review.
Oh, yeah, you're talking about the front with the color. That's fine. This is good. I can read that one. While she's looking for that, oh, here we go.
Just gotta find the right page.
Well, a citizen came up named Brad, was at the polls and wanted me to pass along a suggestion that maybe we talk about putting a small time capsule in this park for maybe the winning elementary school that does a great receipt race back then, or up then. I could open it up, and but it's kind of a neat idea, you know. It's not that hard to do, but maybe we could talk about doing a time capsule there.
I love it.
Sounds like
the star.
Yeah, the star looks great.
So you want to tell everybody what this is, Adrian?
Yeah, so we talked about that expanded area directly in front of City Hall to make sure that the hardscape was consistent with that of the plaza. And when we talked about that, we thought it would be a neat, I think was one of the council members, I think it was actually Councilmember Rigney's suggestion, to have a really neat, seal or some sort of, art in the middle of a circle here in front of our front doors. And we went back and forth on whether that should be, a big C or something in pavers, but ultimately settled in on something that was, granite and, really nice quality materials. And this Texas Star was the ultimate design that emerged. And it says City of across the top and then Colleyville across the bottom.
Also,
really,
it
really
fixes
nice.
our ADA problem that we have out front as well.
Yes, and a lot of the different kind of materials that have evolved over the years, this cleans up all of that.
Good. Excellent.
Yeah, I think that's a major point that when you look at front of City Hall, if those of you that have been here more than 5 years realize that there were no shrubs put out there. There were holes in the pavement out there with dirt in them. And with our new city manager and the team have done a fabulous job of beautifying the front of City Hall. And this project is going to do an amazing job of pulling everything together. So when you show up at the front of City Hall, you'll not only see the wonderful plaza to the right as you look, but as you move straight forward, everything is tied together. It'll have the same stones, the same structure. Also, the structure ties in with the library and the City Hall so that everything will appear to be coordinated, and that is very significant. We don't want something to show like 4 different architectures and structures. So it's really important.
And you just reminded me, so I'm going to remind tell the audience, they may have missed this, separate project, but the doors at City Hall, front and back, are going to be changed so that they automatically open. You mentioned ADA, so that people that have a hard time getting through doors can go through easy. So that's gonna be an improvement. That's a separate activity, but when's that gonna be done?
That's coming this summer as well.
Yeah, I think
Summer,
the
yeah.
intent was to have that kind of concurrent with this other project.
Yeah.
Great.
Cool.
Very good. Then, we through talking, ready for a motion?
I can't because.
What's the number?
I make a motion to approve Resolution 19-4381.
I'll second.
We have a motion to approve by Councilmember Nakamura, second by, I believe, Councilmember Rigney.
Oh, I did.
Okay. So, with no more discussion, would you open the vote, please? And show it when it's ready. Motion is approved, therefore the resolution approved, therefore we got a construction contract. Good. Okay, we're moving to agenda item 6, and item 6 is a tabled resolution. Mr. City Manager, do we have what we need to move this off the table?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Would somebody like to make a motion to take this off the table?
Mayor, I make a motion to remove, to take resolution R-19-4373 off the table for the time being.
Second.
Okay, I have a motion by Mayor Pro Tem Lindamood to remove this from the table, second by Councilmember Dodson. I assume you'll take this manually. Councilmember Nakamura, do you vote on that motion to remove from the
Yes.
table? Mayor Pro Tem?
Yes.
Aye.
Councilmember Wheat?
Aye.
Mayor votes aye. Councilmember Dodson?
Aye.
Councilmember Rigney?
Aye.
Okay, so it's off the table. Now, let's talk about it.
All right. Yes, we do have some updates to this request. So to remind everybody, this is a variance request, a major variance request for the location of a fence, specifically to be located along these property lines adjacent to the two street sides. As you saw the aerial photo, it is currently under construction with a new single-family home. It is nearing completion, but there still might be a month or two until that's ultimately done. It is zoned R20, single-family residential district. The total lot size is 25,247 square feet. And that will be a little bit significant here in just a bit. It is designated for residential, so it does comply with our future land use map. So this is the ordinance in relation to fences, specifically adjacent to street frontages. And so this one specifically talks about front yards, no fence or freestanding wall greater than 30 inches in height and no greater than 25% opaque construction shall extend into the required yard on which the primary surface faces. There's a similar requirement that also deals with the privacy fences along other street frontages as well. And there would be some specific setback requirements depending on what's adjacent to it. So this is the zoning exhibit, and what they were requesting is a solid fence along the left-hand side and the bottom side outlined in green, and then a wrought iron fence outlined in blue for the other remaining element or portions of this property. You have Gary Lynn Drive on the right-hand side or to the east, and then Joe Carroll to the north. And so that is the proposal. However, as we just read, it would not be authorized there along the property line. They would be required to meet the building line, which is the dashed line further into the property. So this is the variance itself being requested. This looks slightly different from the last time. We did have a conversation with the applicant, and they understand what the regulation is. And so as an alternate location, I've identified where that could be on the building line for this property, which is a 25-foot building line. And so today they would be able to get a building permit for a fence at this location. The applicant is, though, requesting for a minor, well, I shouldn't use the term minor, but a smaller variance request at this time, here highlighted in the light blue. They have a motor court on that side. That's where the two garage areas are located, which includes a backup area so they can pull out of the garage and then continue forward back out towards the driveway and towards the front. And so they are requesting a wrought iron fence just in this location to capture that, and that would be the limit to their request at this time.
Question, Ben, you're talking about a 30-inch fence, right?
No, they are requesting a variance to allow for a full 6-foot wrought iron fence. For just in the area highlighted in the light blue.
The difference is the purple dashed line would no longer be in front of the home, with the exception of the area where it's blue, because that area that is that squared area is a concrete area that takes access to the drive to the east, and therefore those are garages that you turn in and out of. So what Ben is saying is the only area that would be a variance in this entire request would be the area in blue.
The light.
But I thought what you just read on our ordinance is that that there can be no fence in front of a lot unless it's R40.
Correct.
Higher,
So they are asking
higher than 30 inches.
So they are asking a variance to that regulation.
Unless you give a variance, and that's where this all began, is initially they were requesting a variance to come out to the property line, and the conversation last time was that there was a question about the clarification of some of the terms, and so the request they still have exists, which is the red area, which is to come out to the property line, but what Ben is suggesting as a compromise is just the blue, which would only be a variance in the area of that driveway. And so in that section alone, there'd be a encroachment, if you will.
So I don't see where the driveway goes to that blue area. Am I?
So this,
Okay.
this is a revised plan that
Okay.
you can see.
Through the thing, okay.
They drive through, and then you can access both
I see.
sides of that motor court for garage area.
Thank you.
But if they pull into the garage, they want to be able to,
Back out.
they back out so that they can pull forward back through that overhanging area and then.
Okay, I have another question. I remember one of the residents, a neighbor, bringing up on the left-hand side of this picture, maybe a large concrete pad was put in, and I didn't know if that, did we figure out?
That's this
Right,
here.
yeah,
And that
so
was-
this
that was-
also represents that area.
And that's been, I mean, that's per code and everything.
Right.
No, like.
There's no violations with that as just concrete area.
But in that particular case, any gate that'd be provided there would be provided in line with the home, so it would not
Correct.
be
Okay.
out in the encroachment as it was proposed or talked about before.
Correct.
You know, if we approve this, we're going to allow 6-foot fences in front of any house.
No.
And I don't agree with a 6-foot fence out in front of an R20 house.
I think the red, you need to ignore the red lines.
I don't care about the red lines. I'm
No,
not
but-
even looking at it.
Okay.
Well,
Well,
where are you?
that's where it's very confusing.
It is confusing.
It's very confusing. So are we talking about a 6-foot fence still, or we're not talking about one?
We are talking about a 6-foot wrought iron fence.
Okay.
So if, right now, they are more than likely going to do the purple dashed line, and if you give approval tonight, the light blue line only.
Yeah, so
And
what?
that is the only area that requires a variance.
So what Ben is saying is the ordinance, Ben is saying the current ordinance allows the purple line to be built with no variance. That's what you're
Correct.
saying.
No,
is correct.
not a 6-foot fence, a
Yes.
30-inch fence.
No.
You just read it.
Well, it says back to the setback.
To the
Is that
required,
right?
right, to the required yard. And so it's, which is the setback line.
So I got a question about this 25 foot though. I thought setbacks in R20 says 30 feet. I don't understand where the
Right.
25 comes from.
The 25 is the build line that was shown, is shown on the
So
plat
what?
of record.
So what?
It's still, yeah, it still says front setback
But
is 30 feet.
but wait a minute, I want to answer this. So what? I mean-
So it is a legal document, and that is the line that we use.
Well,
Wait, but I don't understand. I feel like you're asking, the setback is 30 feet per R20 code, right?
yes.
So why should, even if the build line is a different place, why should we allow other
Yes, that's
structures?
what I'm asking.
Yeah, why should we
Yeah, I
allow
have a
other
problem with
structures?
that. Yeah.
Yeah, I think we're saying the same thing.
Yeah, okay, I
Um,
got you, yeah.
So that doesn't make sense to me either.
So
Why, if the
when
setback
this-
is 30 feet, why there's another line?
When this subdivision developed, the setback requirement was 25 feet. And so we have several properties that have been developed where the homes are at the
But this is
25.
a new home.
Correct.
Brand new home, but
Yeah.
the plat on file identifies a 25-foot
Yeah,
build
but I
line.
still have because we changed, I mean, if that was the ordinance way back then, we've changed the ordinance. This is a new building, a new home. It should conform to the new ordinance.
Agree.
I will try and find the rule,
Yeah.
but I believe that it states
Well, I don't.
we would
you-
authorize a setback as
Yeah.
identified on a plat.
Well, you got several council members not agreeing with that at the moment.
Well, I know that we required an R30 house to tear down a wall and make it only
Correct.
30 inches high.
Correct. No, actually, they had to remove all the wall in the front.
What?
They had to remove the whole wall
I
off
know
the
that,
front.
that's what
Yeah,
I'm saying.
not- They didn't
And
give
I
it
don't
height.
agree with a 6-foot fence on an R20 lot.
And that
In
is
the
what they
front.
are
I
asking.
agree with
as a
George.
variance.
What?
They are asking for a variance.
I know.
Right.
Okay,
If
so-
I know.
you do not approve the variance, they cannot do this 6-foot fence.
Right, that's my point.
Okay.
My
That is
point
correct.
is, I do not want to see 6-foot fences in front of R20 houses.
Okay, then
It's gonna look like a set of prisons, in my opinion.
yeah, and so that's what Ben's saying. He's just saying, look, they're asking for the variance and we can just deny the variance.
I understand.
Yep.
I just want
Yeah, yeah.
clarification.
Yes, sir.
We have the opportunity to deny it, is that correct?
That is
Right.
correct.
Okay,
That is
thank you.
before you tonight, yes.
Okay, that's good.
What did you just say, Ben?
That is before you tonight.
Oh, okay.
If you deny the variance request, they can only do what was shown as that purple dashed line.
Okay,
That's
so.
Now, wait a minute.
only 30 inches,
Wait a
correct?
minute.
Yeah.
They can't do a 6-foot fence.
So there's clearly a disagreement between what you're saying and what the council perceives as correct. I'm not sure how to deal with that, other than, it's back to what I said. When this thing went in years and years ago, it had a 25-foot setback. We've changed the ordinance since then. And this is a tear down, I think, and a new rebuild. It should conform to the new ordinance. That's what you hear this council saying.
Yes.
And so we either can come up with maybe an option to handle this that may be acceptable to everybody or not, but that one's not going to fly with the council. That makes sense?
Yeah, and I don't understand the 6-foot fence. I know George has asked a couple times, maybe I'm missing something. This says 30 inches.
I think what it is, they're asking for a variance. They're just asking for
No,
permission.
but he just said if we deny it, they can build a 6-foot fence.
No.
That's what
Well,
he
they
just
can't.
said.
He's
Along
talking
the
about-
building
he's
line
talking
is
about
what I
the
was
front yard
referring to.
setback.
But you only mean the 30
Oh,
inches, correct?
I'll explain it.
No, so let's take this one point at a time. This is gonna go back to authority. So maybe a legitimate question between Ben and our perception of what should be done.
Mhm.
In the end, that's gonna go to the city manager, because he's the ultimate authority on the staff side. So he's walking away, I'm gonna have to, when he gets through,
He's gonna put it on the big board.
yeah.
Okay.
Help clarify. And I'll try not to.
Slide it over a little bit. There you go. Okay.
Okay.
Now,
So
explain.
the question relates to a couple of issues. One is on this side is what we would call the front yard setback. So that's the front of the house per our zoning
Yeah.
consideration.
Okay.
And so because of that, that front yard requirement has a 30-foot setback in the zoning.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And if you build a fence outside that at that 30-foot line or greater, you can build a 6-foot fence. In this particular case, because the house is built back further than that 30 feet, thus it is allowed. It is not considered in the front yard, and that's a problem with our code that needs to be changed. We need to change it to say the front yard setback or the front of the primary structure, whichever is greater. But that's a kind of a moot point for tonight.
Okay.
The other side, which is over here, is has been deemed to be the corner side yard.
Oh,
And in
okay.
that particular case, the setback should apply. and that setback again should be 30 feet, and there's no fence allowed in that 30 feet unless it is 30 inches or less.
Right.
And so the question that's being raised here is, they've asked for a variance on both sides.
Right.
And so, one, they're asking for a variance from technically what they believe they're allowed, which is the setback line, to the property line. And on the other, they're asking a variance from the setback line or the structure to the property line. But Ben's contention, which unfortunately I agree with, is that on the front yard, they could build a fence to that setback line. Now, the debate has been whether that setback line should be 25 or 30 feet. I believe it should be 30 feet.
Right.
But as that house is back further than 30 feet, you theoretically could have a fence between the house and that 30-foot setback line. And that fence would be, in essence, in the front of the house. And that's a problem with our code.
Absolutely.
And so one option that I think Ben is suggesting is that since the variance requested on the corner side yard is for this minor area, trying to draw and right, it's right here, that area.
I know.
Maybe a trade-off is the fence ends at this corner, at this corner.
Yeah.
Then there's no other fence in the front or side except for that area to allow for the turnaround. And that may be a compromise that, while I would agree is not necessarily what we'd want to have as commonplace, but it is a unique situation where a variance is warranted, and so anyone else who in the future requested such a variance would have to have had a unique situation. I think the two attributes that help that unique situation is, one, the turnaround characteristics of this flow-through driveway here, and two is the potential trade-off of that permitted front yard fence. And
So is it, well,
did I explain that well?
Yeah,
Yeah.
no, I understood
That's
that,
what
and,
you said.
and that would be perfectly acceptable to me.
Me too.
I mean, no fence in the front,
That's correct.
Right.
Now,
just a small outlet fence in that one spot.
yes,
Two
now,
spots.
the details is always where it gets complicated. The city attorney would have to provide a mechanism by which you could grant the variance condition upon the fence on the other end going no farther than the front of the edge of the home. And that is a question he'd have to wordsmith, because I'm not so sure how he would do that.
Could you clarify for me, if it wasn't approved, you're saying that only on one side is considered the front yard, correct?
Usually, the way it's, easy way to remember is the smallest portion of the lot on an improved road. And so because this section here is shorter than this section, this becomes the front yard.
Right.
It doesn't matter where the front of the house is
Yeah.
positioned, and that's what Mary had brought up previously. It just has to do how the lot is laid out.
Oh, I see, okay.
And so in this particular case, the front yard setback and the corner side yard setback are the same. They're both 30 feet. There's a different issue on the build line, and that's a separate discussion.
Yeah.
But in this particular case, the house is set back more than 30 feet in the
Right.
front, and our code allows for you to put a fence up to that build line because it anticipates, or that setback line, it anticipates most people would build their house all the way up to it, and the fence would simply stop at the front edge of your home.
Yeah.
In this particular case, it creates a unique situation that is not applicable.
So you're saying in this situation, if it wasn't approved, they would be able to put a 6-foot fence on the north side and then only 30 inches on the front yard?
The 6 foot would be over here, which would be wrought iron, open fence. And then over
because
here,
it's-
they could actually put the 30-inch, yes. Correct.
Okay.
And so that's not what they're requesting. They're requesting to put a 6 foot
Right.
all the way around. But I think that,
So state again, forget all that and just go back to what you said.
The compromise.
A bump out, which would be a variance,
yes,
conditioned on not having a fence in the front, having that fence terminate at the house.
right. And I would
Corner of
terminate
the house.
I would
Yeah.
terminate at this corner.
Right.
You can either terminate at this corner,
Yeah,
which I think would be okay,
yeah,
or this corner.
Yeah.
The area here is so small,
right. I don't
utilization,
think,
it makes this the logical choice.
yeah.
Sure.
But there may be a reason I didn't think of
Yeah.
that they preferred over
May
here.
not get a
Yeah, to me, that would be acceptable to me personally.
I
and-
agree.
And the location of that fence you were just pointing to would, I don't know what that bump out, the design of the house could dictate where they want to put it. It's not a big, as long as it's beyond that first corner to me.
Yeah, beyond, as long as it's back from this corner right here.
Yeah, right.
This corner right there, yep. And
So I don't
that-
know if that's acceptable
I
to
don't
them, but that's, I would be fine with that.
The applicant would have degree on
My
that.
concern was the visibility, so if that's the way you're suggesting, people will still be able to see the stop sign and the cars
Yes.
coming and going when they pull
Oh,
up.
it'll be back then, there's not a problem with that.
Yes, and that's a great question, because it's set back so far from the corner, that bump out here is far enough away that it would not create sight concern.
Could, you know,
And it
for-
wouldn't be a compromise for the neighborhood.
No, I think I understand what you're saying. What I'm trying to understand is, as I said before, we required a house or a wall to be torn down
Yes.
because it wasn't an R40 house.
Yes.
This is an R20 house. So I don't even understand why the codes allow any fence in the front yard.
It only allows it by the unique situation wherein a variance is granted by this board. And so it has to be, and I agree with you, a variance should have a very high standard.
Yes.
The variance should have unique attributes and various qualifying elements that are unique to that
Yeah.
situation.
Yeah.
That particular property didn't have that, or at least at that time didn't win the day with the council. In this particular case, I think the value of trading off that front yard setback, if the applicant were to agree, is probably worth the minor variance for the bump out. But certainly you make a valid point. This is, in my opinion, not precedent setting because it's so unique, but the variance process is supposed to be for things that are not commonplace.
Yeah, so there would be no fence then, other than that bump out on the north side, is that right?
That's correct.
Okay.
On the side yard, that's the corner side.
So there would be no fence in front of the house at all,
No.
except for this one corner?
Yeah, and Ben's exhibit kind of drew it across because he was just connecting the dots, but theoretically, the fence would have ended here anyway.
Yeah.
It would have just then picked up on this corner and then come out and around and
That's
back.
fine.
around. And
Yeah, I don't have a problem with that. I just have a very major problem with a fence completely out in front of such a small lot.
But understand,
I'm
making
with
a
you, George, on that one.
representation,
Yeah. Do we need, and it sounds like we need to consider modifying our standards, very definitely.
Yes.
Okay.
Because you could have a home that is back 35 feet.
Oh, yeah.
And then have a fence literally between the home and that that setback line.
Yeah.
And so that's not the intent. The intent was clearly to avoid fences other than decorative, minor fences in the front yard. And so in this particular case, we have to change the code.
But did we change the code, Richard? I'm sorry, Mr. Mayor.
Yeah.
Did we change the code away from the R40 requirement?
No. I think, we had big discussions about that. I think this was just a kind of a miss. I mean, you work hard to really consider all of the possibilities, and some that are, like, this is very unusual. I really haven't seen this occur. It's perfectly fine the way they're building the house, but it wasn't one of the things that we talked through when we were setting the ordinances. But it's no question, when you get to R40, you can build a fence right out, you know.
I know that.
But
I understand that.
what the ordinance has always been is to, below R40, prohibit that front yard fence.
Right.
And so, that's why I reacted so much, been that way so many years.
I've been reacting, maybe too strongly, but
Yeah.
it just seems to me like, I mean, I have no problem granting the side.
So what I'm hearing, I heard Tammy say it, I think I heard Bobby say it, I think Kathy, said it, I think we've all, Kelly, if you said it, about the little bump out.
Yeah.
That doesn't bother me.
So I guess now the question is, that's acceptable to the council. Would that be acceptable to the applicant? Which means he would get the bump out so he could get into the garage and get out of the garage acceptable. There would be a fence around that garage area so nobody could get in there except them. They would not have the fence in the front yard. It would be, so that's what I see. I don't know if the applicant's here or if they want to talk about it now or talk about it later. It's up to them.
They are.
Okay.
Okay. Do you want us to table it and bring it up later, or do you want?
Okay.
They had asked that maybe we give time to discuss it, and so therefore maybe put it back on the table.
Sure, okay, so we can do that. We'll put it back on the table, and that just gives us opportunity to talk about it with the staff and everything. and I'm sorry I hate to appear obstinate, but this just is such a long-standing position the city's taken, and those of us that have been on council in the past, it just was, wow, it was kind of hit us in the face a little bit. All right, so I would entertain a motion to move this back to the table.
So I'll move to table Resolution R-19-4373.
Okay.
I second.
Okay, I have a motion by Councilmember Wheat to move it back on the table, and a second by Councilmember Dodson. I guess I'll vote manually on this. I don't think so. We already had it. We pulled it off the table, and I didn't even read the ordinance, but I mean the resolution. That's okay. City Secretary just asking, did I need a public hearing? And the answer is no. This was a tabled resolution. We've already had a public hearing on it. We took it off the table to talk about it. We're simply going to put it back on the table. I can tell you this, when we do bring it off, before we pass the resolution, we will have a public hearing, although we wouldn't have to, but we will do that. But tonight it was kind of trying to work out the situation. Okay, so we got a motion and a second. We're going to vote on the menu. Mayor Pro Tem Lindemood.
Aye.
Councilmember Wheat.
Aye.
Mayor votes aye. We're talking about tabling. Councilmember Dodson.
Aye.
Councilmember Rigney.
Aye.
Councilmember Nakamura.
Aye.
Okay, the motion approved. It's back on the table. Okay. Up to agenda 7, citizen comments. I do have cards. Kathy Hadley.
Kathy Hadley, 204 Timberline Drive North. To represent myself, I'm going to talk fast. I have 2 pages. Okay, the first is, in 1965, Lady Bird Johnson set out on a campaign of the highway beautification everywhere, not just in Texas. She was a Texan, but she did it everywhere. These are the wildflowers that grow on their own. You don't plant them. I mean, you can, but they're beautiful. They're God's natural beauty, and they grow. And it's hard to mow them because they're beautiful flowers. For one thing, they protect and feed the wildlife, the birds and everything. I think that I want to let y'all know I really appreciate that the Colleyville Nature Center had some wildflowers growing, and it just broke my heart that they got mowed last year. Well, this year I spoke with somebody, and Parks Department probably, and they did not mow them, and they're beautiful, and they're on Facebook, Colleyville Nature Center. You can see it's God's natural beauty, and it's like, yes, they are a weed, I guess, but they're a beautiful weed. And when you mow them in the fall only. You let them get bushy, so they're going to get taller. I don't know what y'all's code is, but they get taller before they bloom. And then when they bloom, you got to wait till the fall to mow it. So you leave them bushy and I guess unsightly for some people. It's unsightly in Colleyville to have anything over 3 feet tall or 3 inches tall. Please just have some peace and give people some grace and allow the natural beauty in Colleyville. I know some people like their hoity-toity neighborhoods and when everything pristine and clean and nothing outrageous, they want to weed. It's really kind of sad. This Colleyville, parts of it are still country and parts of it are very nice with the nice big houses. But the part I like is the country part and the wildlife. So I want y'all to please consider maybe redoing the city ordinance on mowing grass. It's like you cannot mow. You've got to. I feel horrible about. I'm sorry, I'm jumping. I feel horrible about the guy that had a pasture on Glade Road. years ago, and I just saw this big mass of weeds in this pasture, and I'm not a hoity-toity person. But one day I saw him out there mowing, and I'm like, why are you mowing? Because somebody had reported me, and his pasture was beautiful. It was Indian paintbrushes, just beautiful. But he had to mow it, and now they're gone forever. So Bluebonnet Drive, that used to be when my mother was the Garden Club president years ago. They planted bluebonnets down Bluebonnet Drive, and it was full of bluebonnets. But because they get kind of unkept, because you can't mow them, previous councils had the roadsides mowed, and the bluebonnets are gone. So Bluebonnet Drive no longer has bluebonnets. It's a shame you don't get to see it, Bobby. It was beautiful. That makes me think of the pond on Glade Road in Bluebonnet. I've mentioned before that y'all need to put some bushes around that pond to make it look nice. The ducks on Riverwalk from the pond there by the Colleyville Center, I've stopped traffic, put my hand out and stopped in traffic, because the ducks are out there going across the road, going across to some bushes where they can get some food and seeds and stuff. Around the Colleyville, I'm sorry, I talk fast. The Colleyville Center, we need to put some bushes for the ducks because they're looking for places to get some food. And it's all pristine and nicely mowed, but we need to think of what's left of the wildlife because we're just kind of pushing them out. May I see if I have anything else? I'll be really
If you're pretty quick.
Really quick, I'm sorry. I guess that's it. Oh, yeah, and then the medians for the roadway, I really don't want to see a bunch of rocks and stuff. We're Tree City, USA, and rocks, we don't need to look like southern Texas, or Mexico. We have lots of green here. So if we do some rocks, that's fine, but let's not do a major rocks like on Church Street next to Market Street. It's just all heavily rocks in the median, and plus the ducks and the wildlife needs. And the medians, if you could have it slanted so that when the turtles go across 26, they can get up onto the median away from cars. Because when Bear Creek floods, they come out and they go across the road. Thank you.
Thank you. Kathleen Hennessy. Ms. Hennessy, did you want to? Mm-hmm.
Kathleen Hennessy, 5013 Stonebridge Drive. I have a really, really sketchy sketch, and I apologize for that. But I've been working on elections, and so I haven't done a professional drawing, but I'll show you what I've got.
You're going to have to
move it over a little bit.
It's not.
Okay, sorry.
There you go. Yep.
This is a very, very, very old problem. Probably over 100 years. There is, I'm just going to shout. There is a pond, there was a pond here. It was 14 feet deep. It was a drainage pond, and it was also a stock pond. And this is more than 100 years it was there, okay? So the water came down what is now Cherry Lane, okay? And the water would percolate over where Bluebonnet is, and it would go round just near the police station and into the Bridges at Riverwalk Pond, okay? And then more water, and recently the water was diverted, and Bobby knows all about this, was diverted under Cherry Lane. All the Bluebonnet Hill stormwater comes down, and it ends up crossing under Cherry Lane, thanks to the city engineers. And then there's a culvert that goes under Bluebonnet, and then joins the preservation drainage system. Sounds brilliant, right? Okay, well, this pond that used to be there, the 14-foot deep pond, was filled with just dirt, and they built a house on it. Yes, it's the last house on the northwest side, if you want to go have a look at it. Now, last year, construction crews were there for at least 6 months, trying to fix the problem because there are 2 springs that feed that pond, and they just put dirt in. Well, I don't know about water, but springs, they just erode anything they come in contact with. Anyway, so the house began to shift, from what I understand from the neighbors. So they got all kinds of engineers and workers and everything to stabilize that house. So now the water comes, the same volume of water, it's the same storm water coming down here for more than 100 years, probably 300 or 400 years at least. It's still going to come down here, and now it spreads its way over, and this is what is coming onto my neighbors' backyards. And the police station used to get a lot of stormwater drainage, but thanks to Bobby, it's all been diverted. It goes down here, and the police station's okay, but the bridges at Riverwalk are not. So now that water comes down right across, and this is the boundary between preservation and bridges at Riverwalk. And guess what? They get all that water. Thanks a lot.
Can you move the drawing up a little bit? We can't see that.
Oh, okay. Is that
No,
better?
up that way.
Okay.
Yeah,
There you go.
So, and I apologize for the drawing. But anyway, so the house that was built on the pond now, it's got all kinds of, structures and everything that blocks everything. But those springs, we don't know really what happened. No one will tell us what happened to those springs. My guess is that they tried to fill them in with a gazillion tons of concrete. That's usually what they do. Well, when that happens, it just seeps somewhere else. So suddenly, about 6 months ago, here's my house, okay, and here's the master bedroom in the back, okay, and I have a nice wood floor there, bamboo because I thought it was going to be impervious to everything. All of a sudden, it's got a 3-inch bulge in it, and it goes about 9 feet long from the back wall of my house, all the way 3 inches. And I don't know. I'm going to have to get engineers in. I think I may have a slab crack. I'm pretty sure I do, but it looks like it's from the hydraulic pressure because there's no relief for those springs. So there is another spring over here, and that diverts down to a pond on this side. But where these springs have gone, I think they've gone underground. Anyway, so for 15 years that I've had this house, no problem with my slab. And suddenly, a few months after that the problem was resolved with this house, I've got just about 3 inches high, a little mound all the way along. So I think I have a slab crack.
Yeah.
But what I would like to know from the city is, what city personnel, if any, were involved in this brilliant idea to block those springs, and who in the city worked with these owners, because I'd like to interact with them.
You have to have a permit to do slab track work?
Right. What'd you
I
say?
don't know.
No,
I don't
no.
think, I don't know that you
Jack it up
do.
Maybe, but
You didn't hear it?
structural, if you're doing structural, maybe, but no, if you're just doing some minor crack repair, no.
Yeah.
It wasn't crack repair, it was actually,
Yeah.
they were digging deep into
Yeah,
the.
I would
the
suggest,
ground.
yeah, when we're through, let's chat about it.
Okay, all
'Cause I don't
right.
know the answer to that. Yeah.
Anyway, thank
Yeah,
you.
okay. Thank you. Okay, very good. And we moved to agenda item 8. We have no final resolution, therefore I will adjourn unless somebody objects. No
Nope.
objection?
Let's go.
Or adjourn. Thank you.